Chapter 2028. His body released the power of a mid-stage four-crown emperor, and he released level 6 laws. He predicted that although the other party could defeat him, it would not be easy. Demonic sword techniques, 7th move, bury the heavens. A sword image that could destroy heaven and earth slashed out from the projection. Ouya Huanyun's expression changed drastically. He used the chains of laws to block, but the sword chi still pierced through his body. Although it was an illusion and did not cause any damage to his body, the person in charge of evaluation said, Ouya Huanyun has lost. One move. Only one move. The charming woman and the pale-faced scholar who were watching from the side secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. This person defeated Ouya Huanyun in one move, without using any laws. His true strength should be able to rank in the top 50, since when had such a peerless prodigy appeared in their half-Dao civilization. Ouya Huanyun was stunned for a long time before he smiled bitterly and jumped off the stage. I really shouldn't have come. He had suffered a heavy blow. The beautiful woman walked over and comforted him. Big brother Ouya. The other party is most likely a prodigy from the Ecliptic Palace who wants to suppress the prodigies of our civilization. Losing to them is not a big deal. The pale-faced scholar said, with the foundation of the Ecliptic Palace, it is normal for them to nurture such a prodigy. It's normal to cultivate such a genius, so you don't have to worry about it, Brother Oyi. Just as they were talking, the person in charge walked over and sighed. Young Master Ouya, you have to continue working hard. As the leader of the Heaven's Secret 3 and the representative of the Heaven's Secret Civilization's younger generation, how could the person in charge of the Ecliptic Palace not recognize him? What does Lord Duga mean? Ouya Huanyun also recognized the person in charge of the Ecliptic Palace and could hear the meaning in his words. The person in charge looked at the charming woman and the pale-faced scholar and said, I've communicated with Lord Hu Yun of the Four Symbols Civilization. This human called the Reign Immortal is not from the Ecliptic Palace. He's not even from the Half-Path Civilization. What? The three of them were shocked again. Not from the civilization? How is that possible? Other than the civilization. Who can nurture such a young four-crown emperor? If it was a three-crown emperor, they might be able to barely reach that level due to their talent. However, it was too difficult for a four-crown emperor. Ouya Huanyun's expression changed for a long time before he raised his head and smiled. I have enjoyed the resources of the civilization, but I am not even comparable to a person from a normal civilization. With his hands behind his back, he quickly left the branch hall. Big brother Oyi, where are you going? The charming woman and the pale-faced scholar asked. The Four Symbols Civilization. A few days later, a blinding white light flashed through the Four Symbols Civilization's teleportation formation, and Ouya Huanyun appeared. His figure flickered continuously, and he descended directly into the Four Symbol Mansion. I am Ouya Huanyun from the Fecta Civilization. I have come to pay a visit to young Master Yunjian Tian. Please inform him. Butler Qin expressed with respect. Young Master Oyi, please wait for a moment. I'll report it to the people right away. How could Butler Qin not know what kind of person Ouya Huanyun was? He was one of the few prodigies from a half-path civilization that had made it into the top 100 of the ecliptic list. Furthermore, as the inheritor of the Fecta civilization, his status was quite high. Among the half-path civilizations, the Fecta civilization was ranked 50th, much stronger than the four-symbol civilization that hovered around 100th. How could Butler Qin dare to slight the heir of such a civilization? Before long, Yun Zhantian and Yun Qinshuang both walked out, their faces filled with shock and respect. Welcome, young Master Oyi. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you. Yun Zhantian was somewhat overwhelmed by the favor. Someone from a half-path civilization like Ouya Huanyun usually disdained to make friends with people like him. Why would he suddenly pay a visit today? Yun Qinshuang was also extremely shocked. She had admired this young prodigy from the half-path civilization for many years. She never thought that she would be able to see him in person. For a moment, her eyes were sparkling, and her cheeks were slightly red. She said, Young Master Oyi, please come in. The siblings hurriedly welcomed him into the four-symbol mansion's guest hall. In the hall, the mansion master, Yun Qinxiong, stood up to welcome him. Young Master O Yi, how could you bear to come to such a bitter and cold place like the four-symbol civilization? He had a polite and warm smile on his face. He was happy to personally receive such an outstanding junior like Ouya Huanyun. Huanyun, sorry for the intrusion, Ouya Huanyun said politely. Yun Qinxiong laughed. It is the honor of the four-symbol mansion that young Master O Yi is willing to come. Servants, bring the best spirit tea. The group sat down and conversed harmoniously. Yun Qinxiong kept sizing up Ouya Huanyun and couldn't help but praise him in his heart. Not only was Ouya Huanyun's strength outstanding, but his character and breadth of mind were also first-rate. He couldn't help but praise him even more. He glanced at his son and was also looking forward to it. He really hoped that his son would be able to make friends with a current prodigy like Yun Qinxiong. Young Master O Yi, since you're here, let War Sky and Qinchuang accompany you for a walk. What do you think of the four-symbol civilization? I'll order people to prepare some good food and wine. Ouya Huanyun said, Wait, uncle. Actually, I came here because I have something to ask you and your son. Oh, please speak. Yun Qinxiong's eyes flashed slightly. He already had some ideas. Someone like Ouya Huanyun wouldn't come here for no reason. His goal should be related to the drastic change in the ecliptic rankings a few days ago. Huanyun would like to ask the two of you if you know that Rain Immortal. As expected, Ouya Huanyun had come for the Rain Immortal. Yun Qinxiong stroked his beard and shook his head lightly. Unfortunately, we also really want to know who this reclusive expert is and why he would challenge the ecliptic rankings in our four-symbol civilization. This person's appearance had greatly shocked the four-symbol civilization. He had personally gone to the Ecliptic Palace's branch to inquire about this person, hoping to invite him to the Four Symbols Mansion as a guest. Unfortunately, the branch had kept his identity a secret and wouldn't reveal anything. Yun Zhantian also revealed a hint of reverence and said, I didn't think that our four-symbol civilization would be so fortunate to have such a prodigy. It's truly regretful that I couldn't meet him. Ouya Huanyun was disappointed to hear this father and son say this. He had specially rushed over in hopes of inquiring about the Rain Immortal from the Four Symbols Mansion. He wanted to have a face-to-face conversation with this Rain Immortal. Unfortunately, if that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you. Ouya Huanyun stood up. Yun Qinxiong said, Young Master Huanyun, why are you in such a hurry to leave? You can leave after eating. I appreciate your kindness, but I still have matters to attend to. I won't disturb you any longer. Ouya Huanyun tactfully declined and cupped his hands to bid farewell. Yun Qinxiong sighed inwardly. In the end, someone like Ouya Huanyun still looked down on the Four Symbols Mansion. After he left, Yun Qinxiong said, Tian'er, you must work hard. If you can be like the Rain Immortal, why would the Four Symbols Mansion lack connections? Yun Zhantian smiled bitterly. Father, you've personally seen the Rain Immortal's projection. His true ranking is far more than 100. He should be within the top 50. Currently, I can barely stand at the 180th position. It's too far away from him. Yun Qinxiong sighed. Talent was not something that could be forced. He could only be envious. After a pause, he frowned and said, Qinchuang, did that Su guy really not come to the Four Symbols Mansion again? 5 days had already passed. He had predicted that the young sect master would return to ask for an invitation. However, he didn't. He couldn't help but be slightly worried. Yin Qinchuang was still thinking about Ouya Huanyun's figure. When she suddenly heard this, her face immediately darkened. Don't ask me. She was angry. Everything was fine, but he had driven him away. Look at him now. The elder's lifespan was coming to an end. He didn't have another 100 years to live. It might not be possible to find the Pathmaster's bone again in 100 years. Yun Zhantian snorted. Who does he think he is? He's upset just because he spoke the truth? We didn't mistreat him. Yun Qinxiong shook his head. This person is too narrow-minded. He doesn't listen to harsh advice. He's not a promising person. Hearing this, Yun Qinchuang did not say a word. She only laughed coldly in her heart. What a joke. He had trampled on his dignity and driven him away. and now he was blaming him for being narrow-minded? Her father and brother probably took the Four Symbols Mansion's identity too seriously, so they didn't feel that it had hurt Su Yu's dignity. She slowly stood up and said, "Do as you wish. I've already tried my best to help the elder. If he blames me in the future, it has nothing to do with me." Now, the elder was still searching for the Pathmaster's bone. If he had found it, it would have been fine. If he had not found it and learned that the Four Symbols Mansion had rejected the Pathmaster's bone, who knew how he would feel? Removing Yun Qinxiong from the Mansion Master's position in a fit of rage would be considered a light punishment. Hearing this, Yun Qinxiong's expression darkened. He was slightly regretful. He had not expected the young faction master to have such a strong ego. He had merely not condescended, and the other party had left in a fit of pique. Even now, he did not feel that he had done anything wrong. Send people to look around. Be polite, Yun Qinxiong said, waving his hand. Yun Qinxiong shook her head. It would be useless even if they found it. So you could not exchange it with the Four Symbols Mansion. Displeased, Yun Qinxiong walked into the market alone to stroll around. Back to Su Yu. After training in seclusion for a few days, he woke up from his meditation and sighed. The 8 style is different from the previous sword techniques. Building a cart behind closed doors will not work. He tried to comprehend the nameless style of the demonic sword technique, but it required improvement in actual combat. It was completely different from the previous sword techniques. It would be difficult to cultivate it successfully just by comprehending it. After thinking for a while, he left the house. His personal maid stood quietly outside the house, waiting for Su Yu's summons to serve him. Let me ask you, is there any place in the four-symbol civilization that is suitable for sparring? The maid thought about it seriously and said, "Young master, when you say sparring, do you mean with people or objects?" "With people," Su Yu said. Humans were far more flexible than mechanical puppets, so they were more suitable for sparring. If you're talking about people, I recommend the infinite stairs of our civilization. It is a sacred place for sparring, and there are people of all levels of cultivation there, including the level of the Four Crowns Emperor. Su Yu's eyes lit up, and he asked for more details. The infinite stairs was a sacred place for sparring, built by the Four Symbol Civilization's masters for dozens of generations. Once inside, no matter how serious their injuries were, as long as they left the stairs, they would recover in an instant. Therefore, they were not afraid of fighting to the death inside. When sparring, people rarely used their full strength because they had to consider whether they would cause harm to the other party. Chapter 2029. In this way, the effect of honing oneself would be weakened. As for the immeasurable stairs, it did not matter if the two sides fought to the death, as it could stimulate the potential of the sparring participants. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to call it a sacred place for sparring. However, not everyone could enter the immeasurable stairs. First, it cost 10 Dao coins to enter once. Second, before entering, one had to undergo a cultivation test. According to the strength of the test, one would be sent to different levels of the stairs. The martial artists on the different levels of the stairs had different cultivation levels. This ensured that the martial artists on the same level were of equal strength, and it was meaningful to spar. If the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, the spar would become meaningless. After understanding this, he moved to the Great Hall at the foot of the immeasurable stairs. Inside the Great Hall, groups of people were waiting to be tested. So he put them in his pocket, paid the 10 Dao coins, and waited patiently. Their method of testing was to randomly pair up the people who were preparing to enter and fight each other. You, the two of you come over and spar. I will evaluate your strength and send you to the corresponding stairs. The person in charge of the testing said to Su Yu and the other young man wearing a bamboo hat. He probably felt that the two of them were young and that the difference in cultivation levels would not be too great. Su Yu sized them up and gently nodded. You go first. It's best if you use your full strength. Don't worry about me, the bamboo hat man said confidently. Su Yu muttered to himself. He had wanted to say the same thing. In the four-symbol civilization, there should not be anyone stronger than him among his peers. But since the other party had said it first, there was nothing to argue about. After thinking for a moment, He did not even take out his Shura sword. Then be careful. The bamboo hat man did not say a word, his body surging with a desolate power to protect his body. Nirvana of the evil dragon. Suyu's arm turned into a dragon claw, carrying the strength of an early-stage four-crown divine warrior as he attacked. The bamboo hat man was slightly shocked. He hurriedly put down his hands behind his back, hurriedly blocking. Bang! The bamboo hat man was forced back a few steps, secretly surprised. Apart from Yun Jiantian, the four-symbol civilization still has a youth like you. His desolate power doubled, and he used a powerful divine technique. Suyu did not say a word, still using his tyrannical dragon body to fight. This time, both of them took several steps back. Suyu was slightly surprised. The four-symbol civilization was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. He had actually met a strong man of the Four Crowns Emperor realm who was about the same age as him. What he didn't know was that the man in bamboo hat was even more surprised. That attack just now contained 30% of his strength, but it was actually unable to do anything to someone of the same generation. In the Fectus civilization, there were only a handful of people like that. Who would have thought that he would meet one of them so casually? He was none other than Ouya Huanyun. Since he could not find a Reign Immortal, he came to the famous sparring holy land of the four-symbol civilization to try his luck and find a few four-crown emperors to spar with before leaving. Who knew that he would run into a young heaven's favorite in the testing hall? This was truly unexpected. I don't believe it. Ouya Huanyun, who had intended to attack casually, suddenly became serious and said, "Be careful." He released all of his cultivation and took the initiative to attack. So he was not afraid at all. He activated the dragon power in his body to resist the attack. Bang! The battle between the two of them caused space to tremble violently, and the entire hall emitted muffled sounds that were extremely ear-piercing and caused everyone to be surprised and bewildered. What's going on? Two top experts of the younger generation? Isn't this strength a little too exaggerated? Ouya Huanyun retreated 100 feet, truly shocked. Even with 50% of his strength, he still could not do anything to his opponent. Who the hell is this guy? However, his fighting spirit was stimulated, and he raised his head and laughed. Ha ha, again, that's enough. The person in charge stopped him in time. Both of your cultivations are very powerful. You can go to the golden stairs, and you can go to the silver stairs. Ouya Huanyun was qualified to go to the golden stairs, and Suyu could go to the silver stairs. The immeasurable stairs were divided into 9 stages. There were 9 stages: black iron, silver, gold, crystal, mysterious water, and mountain. The black iron stage was only suitable for 3-crown emperors to spar with. The silver stage was suitable for early stage 4-crown emperors. The gold stage was suitable for mid-stage 4-crown emperors. The mysterious water stage was suitable for late-stage 4-crown emperors. The mountain stage was suitable for early-stage 5-crown emperors. The person in charge of the testing was quite discerning. Even though Ouya Huanyun had concealed his strength, he could still roughly estimate his cultivation level. As for Suyu, he had concealed his strength too well, so he had not been detected. May I ask how I should address you? Ouya Huanyun was quite interested. Suyu, so it's Brother Su. Your strength is not bad, and you should be among the top of the 4-crown emperors. Ouya Huanyun commented. Work hard. I have high hopes for you. Suyu nodded. You flatter me. The other party had only used half of his strength, while Suyu had used less than 10%. If he had been a little more serious, the man in the bamboo hat before him would not have survived a single move. Haha, I'll go first, Ouya Huanyun said, disappearing at the entrance of the immeasurable stairs. Suyu followed closely behind. With a teleportation, he appeared on a silver-white flight of stairs. The silver stairs had 9 stages in total. Each stage was extremely large, spanning millions of mountains and rivers, enough for the divine warriors to fight to their heart's content. The higher the silver stairs, the higher the martial artist's strength. Suyu was a newcomer climbing the stairs for the first time, so he appeared on the first stage. If he wanted to climb to a higher stage, he would need to win more than 10 battles on this stage. Once he had completed the 9 silver stages, he would be able to enter the golden stage. A newcomer. It can't be, he looks so young. A middle-aged martial artist with a long rat's tail and a sharp mouth noticed Suyu, and he was slightly surprised. He rolled his eyes, walked over, and said, "Lad, do you know the rule for newcomers?" Suyu's face was calm. "Oh, tell me about it." "The rule is that newcomers must be sparring with the seniors first. Do you have any objections?" Generally speaking, the people who had been here for a long time were much stronger than the newcomers. Sparring with the seniors would usually lead to a miserable ending. "I have no objections," Suyu said. He had come here to find someone to spar with. Hee. "Then let me, as the senior, go first," the rat's tail said. The martial artists who had just arrived were secretly cursing their bad luck. Rat Boy beat him to it again. He even ran into a young newcomer. What good luck! It turned out that there was a limit to the spars in the immeasurable stairs. Every time one entered, they could only lose 10 battles in a row. Once they exceeded the limit, they would be transported out. There was only one way to prolong the spars, and that was to win 3 battles. If they won 3 battles, they would have one more chance to lose. However, the people here were all seniors, and they knew each other very well. They were all extremely cunning, and they had to rack their brains to win a battle. Therefore, they were more than happy to be able to spar with a newcomer. The rat's tail man was very lucky, as he was the first to challenge Suyu. Swish! Suyu drew the Azura sword and swung it around. He said, "I'm ready. Let's begin." Rat Boy chuckled. "Don't you need the rules?" "No." "Oh, then I'm going to use them." "Suit yourself," Suyu said calmly. Rat Boy was overjoyed. Such an arrogant newcomer was simply here to give away his points. Black Fog rules. Rat Boy attacked without warning, and a chain of rules shot towards Suyu. Suyu's expression was calm as he swept the Azura sword across the air. Nameless. The sword technique was ordinary, and there were no fancy moves. It was just an ordinary, nameless move. However, the sword technique contained an extremely simple and mysterious trajectory. Without any burst of sword energy or power, Rat Boy, who was charging towards Suyu, was suddenly annihilated along with his rules. He had been killed on the spot. Not far away, Rat Boy's figure reformed, unharmed, but his face was filled with terror. The few veterans watching from the side were even more terrified, and they frantically retreated with pale faces. Suyu's eyes were filled with disappointment. Too weak. His sword technique had not been completed, and even the rat's tail man could not withstand it. Such a sparring session would be of no use in improving his sword techniques. "Let's try again after entering the golden stairs," Suyu said calmly. He then lifted his eyes to look at the group of veterans and asked, "Next, which old man should I spar with?" "Run. We've met a monster. Let's go." The group of seniors scattered like birds and beasts, fleeing as fast as they could. Suyu sighed, raised the Azura sword, and said, "Nameless." He used his sword technique again, and wherever he passed, the seniors were all killed with a single strike. Before long, the first silver stair was filled with wails and howls of agony. After killing 10 people, the second silver stair finally opened up for Suyu to ascend. He was expressionless as he headed straight for the second level. The seniors on the first level patted their chests, still fearful. "Damn it, what a fierce person." Just as they finished speaking, suddenly, the second level was filled with cries and screams of terror. The seniors looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. Just like that, the 9th silver stair continued to rise, the screams of agony rising and falling. Before long, at the first gold stair, Suyu killed a 4-crown middle stage divine warrior with a single strike. His eyes were filled with disappointment. Still too weak. Nameless had not succeeded in his training, but a 4-crown middle stage divine warrior was no match for him. It looked like he could only head to the higher crystal staircase and find a 4-crown late stage divine warrior to spar with. He raised the Azura sword once again, ferociously defeating everyone he met along the way, continuously ascending to the higher gold stair. After leaving the golden staircase, The entire gold stair was in an uproar. On the 6th level, Uya Huanyun was panting heavily, hiding in a secret place to rest. He had been looking down on everyone along the way, successfully killing his way from the 1st level to the 6th level. But just now, he had met a fierce person at the 6th level, and his abilities were extremely strong. Both of them were middle-stage 4-crown divine warriors, but he was no match for the other party. He had already been killed once. But the other party saw that he was a newbie and did not let him go. It was not easy for him to escape to this place, and he was temporarily safe. At that moment, there was a flash of light not far away. A shattered human figure reformed, still screaming in pain. Looking at it, Uya Huanyun's mouth twitched. It was the person who had been chasing him. He was about to escape when he suddenly realized something was wrong. He was secretly shocked. He was killed by someone. This person's abilities were extremely close to a 4-crown late-stage divine warrior, who was powerful enough to kill him. Chapter 2030. Uya Huanyun left quietly. What shocked him was that along the way, many of the martial artists were not in the mood to continue sparring. Instead, they were huddled together, discussing intensely. He went forward to listen and learned that a monster had just appeared at the 6th level of gold, with terrifying, heaven-defying sword techniques. Anyone who tried to stop him would die. After killing 10 people, he climbed all the way to the 7th level. Luckily, I ran fast, a martial artist said, grinning. Otherwise, I would have been hacked to death. You are all lucky, but I was unlucky. I was killed for no reason. Haha, who asked you to provoke us first? Hearing their description, Uya Huanyun was secretly surprised. The 4-symbol civilization is full of experts. A swordsmanship expert can appear at any time. The figure of Yu Xian appeared in his mind. She was also an expert swordsman, and she had also killed him with a single strike. However, from their description, this person's sword techniques were even more terrifying, far superior to Yu Xian's. They were probably not the same person. Calming himself down, he continued to look for people to spar with. Meanwhile, Suyu had already charged up the mysterious water stairs. Those who could enter the stairs were most likely at the later stage of the 4-crown divine warriors. Without sword techniques, Suyu could only use the nirvana of the evil dragon to contend with them. But with Nameless, that might not be the case. Not long after, Suyu met a later stage divine warrior with 4 crowns. The two of them politely nodded at each other, then began to exchange pointers. Junior, you go first. The newcomer was a middle-aged man in his 50s. His whole body was surrounded by a faint light, and he looked extremely powerful. He was a little confused. The junior in front of him had cultivated for less than 100 years. How could he have ascended the mysterious water stairs? There must be a loophole somewhere. He might have to send him back. The mysterious water stairs were no joke. Any one of them could pose a life-threatening danger to this kid. Suyu nodded. Yes. His opponent was a 4-crown divine warrior, so he did not dare be careless. Boom! He released all the desolate power in his body, gathering it in the Azura sword. A 4-crown divine warrior? Which family are you from? The middle-aged man could not help but be surprised. A 4-crown divine warrior who was less than 100 years old. This kind of talent was indeed terrifying. However, his cultivation was nothing in his eyes. He smiled and said, "Go all out." He did not even release his great desolation power, intending to take it head-on with his body. Suyu calmly said, "You'd better be more cautious, lest you get hurt." "Ha! Don't worry, I know what I'm doing," the middle-aged man said confidently. How powerful could a 4-crown emperor at the early stages be? Demonic sword technique, Nameless. Suyu nodded his head and struck out with his sword. The Shura sect sword drew a marvelous trajectory that seemed ordinary and unremarkable. The middle-aged man suddenly felt a great danger approaching. His heart raced, and he hurriedly circulated his great desolation force to protect his body. At the same time, he took out a level 5 law in front of him. Bang! However, he seemed to have suffered some kind of invisible attack. The desolate power on the surface of his body was forcefully cut open and struck his true body. His entire body was sent flying as if he had been electrocuted. Not far away, the middle-aged man crawled up with a horrified expression. Is that a law? The power of the other party's swordsmanship was comparable to the power of laws. What was even more terrifying was that the other party was only an early-stage four-crown emperor, yet he could shake a late-stage four-crown emperor like him. Although, he was mainly defending and did not attack. That's why I told you to be careful, Suyu said. The middle-aged man's expression changed again and again, and he finally became serious. He released the great desolation force of a late-stage four-crown emperor and even used his law. All right, then I'll be serious. Giantwood law. The middle-aged man's law chain swept out. Suyu's expression was calm, and he used the same sword technique. Clang. The trajectory and the law chain collided, and the latter was repelled. The fight between the two could be considered a draw. This was the result that Suyu wanted. Only with equal strength could he hone his swordsmanship. Nameless. He struck out with his sword again. The middle-aged man was surprised and amused. Good lad. So you thought of me as a sword practitioner. All right, let me see how exquisite your swordsmanship is. He used his full strength, and even the movement technique of a four-crown emperor was activated, displaying the extraordinary strength of a late-stage four-crown emperor. Suyu thought for a moment, then activated the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole, but only suppressed his speed to that of a late-stage four-crown emperor. So fast, the middle-aged man was shocked again, and he became serious. If he was careless today, he might really fail miserably. The two exchanged more than 100 blows, and they were evenly matched. It wasn't until 1,000 rounds later that a hint of victory and defeat finally appeared. Nameless. Suyu struck out with his sword again. Different from the previous trajectory, this time the trajectory flickered with a faintly discernible afterimage. Suyu caught a glimpse of the afterimage, and he understood. The essence of this sword technique might be to grasp the direction of the afterimage. He secretly remembered the direction of the afterimage and struck out with his sword. Creak. The middle-aged man's law was not only struck back, but it also struck his body, sending him flying. The desolate power on the surface of his body was destroyed, and his body was injured by the recoil. Cough, cough. The middle-aged man was shocked. In just half a day of sparring, Suyu's strength had risen at a speed visible to the naked eye. A bitter smile crossed his face. There is no need to continue. I have lost. Suyu put away his sword, cupping his hands. Thank you for letting me win. However, I am not the strongest in the first level of mysterious water. If you're to meet someone else, you might not be able to win. Just what I wanted. Thank you for your guidance. Suyu said, then turned to find someone else to spar with. Not long after, somewhere in the first level, Suyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, staring at the opponent in front of him. He was also a four-crown late-stage divine warrior, but his strength was much stronger than the middle-aged man he had met before. In their first exchange, he was at a complete disadvantage. Again, Suyu was not discouraged and continued to hone his sword techniques in actual combat. 3 days later, Creak. A thick afterimage streaked across Suyu's Azura sword. The strongest four-crown late-stage divine warrior of the first level fell to the ground. Suyu's clothes were torn, his body covered in injuries that were neither light nor heavy. His face showed signs of weakness. I have already reached the threshold, but there is still a long way to go before I can master my sword techniques. Suyu took a deep breath, muttering to himself. Looking at the higher mysterious water stairs, he clenched his teeth and rushed to the second level. The strong fighters of the second level were not only more powerful, but also had rich battle experience. Suyu's single sword technique put him at a complete disadvantage in actual combat. Hee, you want to practice with me? You don't know your place. Nameless technique. Suyu was determined. No matter how much pain he endured, he clenched his teeth and persevered. 3 days later, the 10th opponent fell to Suyu's sword. Even though it took a lot of effort, and both sides fought for more than 1,000 rounds before narrowly winning, it was still a victory. His sword techniques were improving at a speed visible to the naked eye. The third level. I'm coming. For a full 30 days, Suyu had experienced hundreds of battles, and every battle was thrilling and incomparably difficult. Especially in the last battle, he had encountered a peak late-stage divine warrior with unfathomable abilities. He had narrowly escaped death several times and died at his hands. The two sides fought for an entire day, and at the last moment of life and death, Suyu captured the last afterimage and killed it with his perfect sword techniques. His white robes were stained with fresh blood. Finally, perfect, Suyu let out a long sigh. A month of training had not been in vain. The 8 style of the demon sword technique, perfect. Just by relying on the demon sword technique, he was invincible under the 5-crown divine warrior. He did not know what his chances of winning against an early-stage divine warrior would be if he went all out. Looking at the heavy mountain steps, which was a level higher, he pondered for a moment before stepping up. The heavy mountain steps could only be ascended by 5-crown divine warriors. In the 4-symbol civilization, 5-crown divine warriors were rare. Coincidentally, the number of 5-crown divine warriors sparring on the immeasurable stairs was even rarer. As such, Suyu did not find a single 5-crown divine warrior when he swept his gaze across the area. Just as he was about to retreat, he suddenly felt a powerful wave of energy from a 5-crown divine warrior. With a thought, he wore a long black robe, concealing his body. Martial artists at the level of 5-crown divine warriors were most likely from the 4-symbol manner. It was best not to reveal his true abilities to them. After concealing his appearance, Suyu hurried over. He discovered that it was the master of the 4-symbol manner, Yun Qinxiong, sparring with a middle-aged 5-crown divine warrior. Of course, rather than sparring, it was more like giving pointers. After sparring for some time, Yun Qinxiong forced him to retreat, saying, "Second brother's abilities are improving very quickly. I believe that you will enter the 2nd level of the heavy mountain steps soon." That middle-aged man was Yun Qinxiong's brother, Yun Jinghong. Yun Jinghong sighed. "In front of Big Brother, my abilities are nothing. I can't even share Big Brother's burden." Yun Qinxiong was a peak 5-crown divine warrior. A beginner like him was nothing. "You can't say that," Yun Qinxiong said modestly. "I am usually busy, and it was you who guided Yun Zhantian and Yun Qinxiong in their cultivation. Without you, their cultivation might have fallen behind." Yun Jinghong said modestly, "Big Brother, you flatter me. Those 2 children are quite talented. I merely guided them a little. It is nothing." As the master of the 4-symbol manner, Yun Qinxiong was responsible for the affairs of the 4-symbol civilization. He was usually very busy, only occasionally having the time to guide the 2 children in their cultivation. It was all thanks to his younger brother that their cultivation levels did not fall behind. It was completely reasonable to say that he was the teacher of the 2 children. "I still have one last chance to spar. Big Brother, let's have another match," Yun Jinghong said. He had already lost to Yun Qinxiong 9 times in a row. He only had one more chance before he would lose his last chance to spar and be transported away. Yun Qinxiong calmly waved his hands. "The difference between our abilities is too great. Sparring with me will not be of much use. It is more suitable to spar with someone of the same level." As he spoke, they both sensed Suyu's arrival. "You are the 5-crown divine warrior of the 4-symbol manner?" Yun Jinghong looked at the other party, slightly surprised. Since Suyu could reach the stairs to the heavy mountain, he was undoubtedly a 5-crown divine warrior. However, the 5-crown divine warriors of the 4-symbol civilization should all be from the 4-symbol manner. What did he mean by wearing a black robe? "I am not from the 4-symbol manner, and my cultivation level is not that of a 5-crown divine warrior," Suyu calmly said. "Oh," Yun Qinxiong and Yun Jinghong were both surprised. Could he be an outsider who had ascended the heavy mountain? Chapter 2031. "Are you here to spar with me?" Yun Jinghong asked. Suyu nodded. "Yes." Thinking for a moment, Yun Jinghong calmly said, "All right, since I have no one to spar with, I'll give you some pointers. Make your move." Suyu took out the Azura sword, his desolate energy gushing forth. Demon sword technique, 8 style, nameless. He swung his sword with all his might. A series of afterimages drew out an extremely mysterious arc. The calm expression of Yun Jinghong suddenly changed. He immediately gathered a layer of desolate energy on the surface of his body. But how could he completely block the attack in such a short time? He felt as if he was being cut by thousands of sharp blades. The desolate energy he had just gathered was dispersed as it landed on his body. Ding, ding, ding. With the sound of metal striking metal, Yun Jinghong's clothes were shredded, revealing his powerful physique. Streaks of crimson sword marks blossomed on his body like bamboo shoots after a rain. His body was forced back by the sword energy. Su Yu's eyes flashed. "Evil Dragon Nirvana," he growled. His body suddenly grew taller, growing to a height of 30 feet. His entire body was covered in dense black dragon scales, his limbs turning into ferocious dragon claws. There was also a long dragon tail on his back. With a stomp of his feet, the ground shook violently. His body shot forward like a spring. Leaving behind an afterimage, he teleported in front of Yun Jinghong, his dragon claws slamming toward his head. Yun Jinghong was forced to retreat by the sword energy. He could not react in time and was sent flying by the dragon claws. His head felt dizzy. He was laughing in his heart. A dignified 5-crown emperor was actually defeated in front of a 4-crown emperor. Enough! His figure instantly disappeared, reappearing 10,000 feet away, preparing to put some distance between them. Unexpectedly, his opponent's movement technique was unbelievably fast. He had teleported a step earlier, but his opponent had arrived later, a dragon tail lashing at his waist. Thump! His body was sent flying. However, this was not the end. While he was still flying backward, the other party teleported and stepped on his chest. Thump! His entire body fell heavily to the ground. Yun Jinghong was infuriated by Huang Xiaolong's attack. Just as he was about to retaliate, a 3-zhong tall shadow suddenly appeared in his line of sight. The Azura sword in the shadow's hand slashed down viciously. Crack! Yun Jinghong lost the protection of the prehistoric force, and a large patch of dark red sword marks appeared on his body again. Su Yu sighed. After all, their cultivations were too far apart. He used all of his strength, but was still unable to inflict any effective damage on the 5-crown emperor. At most, it was just a superficial wound. "Sir, you are very strong. I admire you." Su Yu sheathed his Azura sword, and with a single thought, the immeasurable stairs detected his intention to leave and transported him out. Yun Jinghong shouted, "Stop!" He crawled out of the deep pit, and the dark red sword marks on his body quickly disappeared without a trace. Where did this guy come from? Yun Jinghong's face turned slightly red, and he laughed angrily. "You beat me up and then ran. If word gets out, I'll lose all my face in the 4-symbol civilizations." Ha! Yun Qinxiong, who was watching from the side, could not help but laugh out loud. To be honest, even he was shocked. The other party was a 4-crown emperor, but he could use his sword techniques and strange transformation techniques to beat up a 5-crown emperor. Although Yun Jinghong did not have the chance to attack, it was unbelievable that he could force him to this extent. "Brother, why didn't you stop him?" Yun Jinghong grumbled. How could he let the matter rest after suffering such a huge loss? Yun Qinxiong said, "If he wanted to leave, how could I stop him? Furthermore, I feel that you should remember this lesson. Don't let your guard down just because the enemy is weak." Yun Jinghong's face turned red, and he said embarrassedly, "This matter, I hope you can keep it a secret, especially not in front of those 2 children. Otherwise, I really would not have the face to see them." "Ha!" Yun Qinxiong laughed. At the foot of the immeasurable stairs in the great hall, a white light flashed, and Su Yu appeared from the exit. Taking off the extremely black robe he was wearing, he walked out. "Brother Su, I've been waiting for you for a while." A familiar voice entered his ears. Looking up, he saw that it was the bamboo hat youth who had entered the immeasurable stairs with him. "What business do you have with me?" Su Yu asked. "Haha, Brother Su's abilities are extraordinary. I would like to spar with you again," the bamboo hat youth said. Su Yu laughed. "Is the spar at the immeasurable stairs not enough to satisfy you?" The bamboo hat youth sighed. "Sigh, I was about to spar with 400 to 500 matches, and I was very interested. who knew that I would run out of chances to spar with someone else. So you came looking for me? Suyu could not help but smile. He probably felt that Suyu could spar with him for a short while, and so he specifically waited for Suyu. I'm sorry. I still have some matters to attend to. I'm afraid I have no time to spar. No matter. Let's find a place to drink and exchange our experiences on the immeasurable stairs, the bamboo hat youth said shamelessly. So you had a slight headache. Martial fanatics were harder to deal with than ruthless enemies. He could destroy the latter with one strike, but he could not do anything to the former. Unable to resist the youth's persistent pestering, he could only say, "All right. Haha, Brother Su is straightforward. Let's go to the local Drunken Immortal Inn, my treat." The Drunken Immortal Inn was the property of a branch of the Ecliptic Palace. It was also the most luxurious inn in the four-symbol civilization. A meal would cost at least 200 Tau coins. To an ordinary four-crown emperor, this was a sky-high inn that they could not afford. It was obvious that this person was not cheap. Before long, the two of them were drinking in the inn. I see that Brother Su's physique is strong. You should be walking the path of physique, right? The bamboo hat youth said as he thought about how Suyu had used his physique to defeat him, who was a level higher than him. Suyu thought for a moment and did not deny it. You could say that. He had never specialized in cultivating physique, and his main cultivation technique was not physique, but sword techniques. Impressive. With your combined abilities, I estimate that you can enter the top 150 of the Ecliptic list. Brother Su, are you willing to try? You flatter me. How can my abilities be that high? Suyu said modestly. The bamboo hat youth laughed. Flatter me? That's not it. You could fight to a draw with someone ranked 101. It would be easy for you to enter the top 150. Suyu was slightly stunned and said, 101. You are? The bamboo hat youth took off his bamboo hat, revealing his true appearance. He smiled. A nobody. I am Uya Huanyun from the Tianji civilization. It's you? Suyu was slightly surprised. Uya Huanyun was slightly stunned. Oh, you know me? If he had not been paying attention to the Ecliptic list for a long time, he should not have recognized him. Suyu found it funny. He had just kicked him out of the top 100 of the Ecliptic list not long ago. How could he not recognize him? I have seen the image of you in the Ecliptic Palace. You are very powerful, Suyu said. Uya Huanyun smiled and said, looks like Brother Su is someone who understands the Ecliptic rankings very well. Since that's the case, you should know that since you're able to fight to a draw with half of my strength, your chances of entering the 150th rank are rather high. Suyu smiled but did not speak. Fight to a draw? He had not even used 10% of his abilities. Brother Uya is very powerful. I am impressed, Suyu said. Uya Huanyun waved his hand. What am I? Not to mention, I was recently kicked out of the top 100 by a mysterious heaven ruler. Suyu did not speak. That person is called Yuxian. Brother Su, since you are from a four-symbol civilization, you should have heard of his name. Suyu's expression was calm as he nodded. I have heard of him. This person's sword techniques are superb. From what I can see, even the top 50 of the Ecliptic list might not be a match for him, Uya Huanyun said. This time, I came to the four-symbol civilization with the intention of paying a personal visit. I did not expect his identity to be so secretive that even the Four Symbols Mansion did not know about it. What a pity. He did not know that Yuxian, whom he wanted to find, was sitting right in front of him. That Yuxian is actually not that powerful. I believe that Brother Uya will surpass him in the future. Uya Huanyun shook his head. It is impossible. The difference is too great. He looked at Suyu and laughed. But you, if you work hard, you can enter the top 100. I have high hopes for you. Thank you. Suyu smiled. Right? What level has Brother Su reached on the immeasurable stairs? Uya Huanyun asked. Suyu pondered for a moment. He had only managed to reach mysterious water level 9 before failing at the heavy mountain level 1. He said, I'm ashamed. I'm only at level 9. Uya Huanyun was not surprised. Based on what he and Professor Suyu could see, Suyu's abilities should be close to the top among the early stage 4-crown divine warriors. He praised, not bad, Brother Su. You managed to reach silver level 9 at the early stage of 4-crown divine warriors. You almost entered the ranks of the gold stairs. You are quite impressive. Suyu was slightly startled, but he soon chuckled. He did not explain much, but asked, "Where is Brother Oyi? I'm only gold level rank 8. I can't compare to Brother Su." Suyu exclaimed inwardly. To be able to reach gold level 8 meant that this person was a top-notch existence among the middle stage four-crown martial artists. "Brother Oyi, you are too humble," Suyu said. Next, the two of them exchanged their martial arts experiences. In the beginning, Uya Huanyan thought that he should be the one to explain more. After all, his cultivation was higher than the others. However, who would have thought that after this exchange, Suyu's understanding of the martial path would far surpass his? In particular, Suyu was omniscient about the great ways of heaven and earth. In comparison, Uya Huanyan's understanding of the martial path was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. In the beginning, Uya Huanyan still shared some of his own opinions. However, towards the end, it was Suyu who spoke. Uya Huanyan listened attentively most of the time, like a student listening to a teacher. After a long while, the sky gradually darkened. Suyu said, "Why don't we call it a day? We will talk again if fate allows it." Uya Huanyan woke up with a start. He felt a sense of loss in his heart. He sighed. "To think that Brother Su is younger than me. But you are so knowledgeable and omniscient. I am ashamed. I was influenced by what I saw and heard from others," Suyu said. "It is not a big deal." He had become a deity by using a myriad of paths. His understanding of the great ways of heaven was naturally far greater than that of ordinary people. Uya Huanyan stared at Suyu with deep admiration. Suyu clearly had such talent and knowledge, but he was still so humble. He was completely unlike his peers. People of the same age more or less like to show off and be ostentatious to satisfy their vanity. Chapter 2032. The trip to the four-symbol civilization was not in vain to get to know Brother Su. Uya Huanyan sighed. Brother Su must be participating in the Ecliptic Palace Assembly, right? What do you think? Suyu thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Uya Huanyan was a good person with a generous heart. There was nothing wrong with traveling with him. I still have a few friends who are still in the Tianji civilization. Ask them to come to the four-star civilization and board the palace ship together. As the saying went, birds of a feather flocked together. A person like Uya Huanyan would probably have good friends. Sure. Haha, it's a deal. Uya Huanyan put on his bamboo hat again and left the drunken immortal in with Suyu. As soon as they went downstairs, a group of men and women walked past them, laughing. Yin Qinshuang was among them. She had already walked far away, but she suddenly sensed something out of the corner of her eye. She turned around and looked at Suyu in surprise. "Why are you here?" Suyu stopped and said, "Drinking with a friend." "Friend?" She looked at the man in the bamboo hat beside him, then at the drunken immortal inn, surprised. The drunken immortal inn was extremely expensive. Even she could not bear to come unless there was an important gathering. Suyu had just come to the four-symbol civilization and certainly did not have any Tao coins on him. This friend must have paid for him. He really knew how to make friends, to make such rich friends in the blink of an eye. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that Suyu really did know how to make powerful friends. There would always be some strong people around him, such as the hunters recently. "Haha, sister, I told you if you give money to this kind of person, he will only spend it recklessly. He will never use it properly." A discordant voice came from among them. Suyu looked over. It was Yun Zhantian. He was among them. Yun Zhantian looked Suyu up and down, his eyes full of disdain. He had sensed that Yun Qinshuang had given Suyu a bronze card, but had not stopped him. Now Suyu had come to drink with his friends instead of cherishing the money he had received. Yun Qinshuang frowned. "Don't talk nonsense. He did not accept my money." "Is that so? That's even stranger. Where did he get the money to invite a friend to the drunken immortal inn? Did you steal it?" Yun Zhantian looked at Suyu from head to toe, speaking with deep meaning. Suyu didn't utter a single word, as he didn't feel like explaining anything to such a person. However, Uya Huanyan, who was standing at the side, could not stand it any longer. He calmly stared at Yun Zhantian and said, "Everything should be made clear before you speak. Slandering others is not something a gentleman would do. The wine is on me. Why can't I? Yin Tian did not think much of it. He glanced at Yin Tian and said indifferently, with his identity and status, I know what kind of friends he can make. You can't afford the wine of the drunken immortal. Ouya Huanyan didn't say a word. He silently withdrew a bronze card and said indifferently, I can still afford to pay for a meal. So, I hope that you can shut your mouth and stop talking nonsense, all right? When everyone saw the bronze card in his hand, their expressions changed. A bronze card can only be obtained by storing at least 100,000 Dao coins, right? This kind of card is rare. Among the younger generation, almost no one has it, right? Yin Qinshuang and Yun Zhantian were also surprised. Even though they were the heirs to the Lord of Civilization, neither of them had ever obtained a bronze card. The person in front of them was about the same age as them. For him to be able to obtain a bronze card was enough to show that his status was extraordinary. Yin Zhantian's lips twitched a few times, but he didn't dare to continue. There were many crouching tigers and hidden dragons near the half-path civilization and the ecliptic palace. Even though he was in the four-symbol civilization, Yin Zhantian didn't dare offend anyone. Yin Qinshuang hesitated for a moment, then said, Suyu, can we talk? Suyu nodded, walking over. Is it about the Pathmaster's bone? Yin Qinshuang was embarrassed. She glanced at her brother out of the corner of her eye, wishing she could tear him to pieces. Her father had already mobilized the entire city to search for Suyu, but there had been no results. Now that they had finally met, he was actually mocking her. Did he think that he could definitely obtain the Pathmaster's bone if he defeated Suyu? I'm sorry, my brother. Yin Qinshuang found it hard to speak. Suyu said indifferently, Didn't I say it before? He didn't need you to apologize for his mistakes. You don't have to worry about the Pathmaster's bone. We can talk again when he learns how to speak. Even if the four-symbol mansion's attitude was milder, even if they didn't give Suyu an invitation, there was no harm in giving them some face. Yin Qinshuang was silent for a long time, then asked, Where are you staying? Mingxin residence, Suyu said. Yin Qinshuang couldn't help but be surprised. Mingxin residence was a place that only the master of civilization and the ecliptic palace's branch palace could stay in. Even if it was usually empty, they wouldn't lower their standards and allow anyone to move in. Yin Qinshuang's eyes were filled with shock as she looked at the man in the bamboo hat. This person's status wasn't ordinary. Not only could he stay in Mingxin residence, but he could also arrange for Suyu, who was of mediocre abilities and low status, to stay there. This time, Suyu had really made friends with a big shot. All right, I understand, Yin Qinshuang said. The two of them separated. Ouya Huanyan frowned. How does brother Su know the people of the four-symbol mansion? Moreover, they have a deep prejudice against you. With the talent that Suyu had displayed, he would be heavily groomed by any faction he joined. How could he be short of money? The people of the four-symbol mansion really looked down on him. We met by chance and didn't have much interaction. It's normal that they don't understand my situation, Suyu said. Ouya Huanyan suddenly understood. No wonder. Yin Qinshuang is still all right, but Yin Zhantian is really unworthy of praise. Why should I care about them? I won't have much interaction with them in the future. Ouya Huanyan agreed with this point. With Brother Su's potential, you are destined to be from two different worlds. Indeed, you won't have much interaction with them. During the martial arts exchange, Ouya Huanyan had attributed Suyu's extraordinary background to his vast understanding of Suyu. His future potential would definitely surpass the likes of Yin Zhantian. The two of them separated, and Suyu returned to Mingxin residence. As he waited for the palace ship to arrive, he tidied up the nursery of the 9-jade spiritual pearl. He hadn't entered the nursery for more than 10 years. Other things were fine, but the nining grass had probably grown crazily. The maturing period of this plant was very short. In the outside world, it would mature once every month. Now that so much time had passed, the nursery might have been occupied by the 9-yin grass, affecting the growth of the other plants. With a thought, he entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl. Unexpectedly, after entering the 9-jade spiritual pearl, he discovered that the nursery had been tidied up neatly. The excess 9 grass had been picked and piled beside the nursery. Xiao Dai? Suyu's first thought was of her. Back then, Xiao Dai had said that she would awaken in a few years. Now that more than 10 years had passed, shouldn't she have broken out of her cocoon? But Suyu shook his head slightly, his gaze sweeping across the surroundings. It wasn't Xiao Dai. That fellow only knew how to eat. Since when did she know how to tidy the nursery? Suddenly, Suyu creased his brows and appeared in front of the cottage. He saw a beautiful woman in a white robe, carefully instructing a beautiful woman in a multicolored dress. The latter was only 20 years old. She had an oval face, fair and clean. Her eyes were also multicolored, as beautiful as crystals. Although her aura had changed greatly, he could confirm that she was Xiao Dai. However, the beautiful woman in white, who was so beautiful that she could topple nations, was extremely unfamiliar. Who are you? Suyu stared at her coldly. The beautiful woman in white calmly raised her eyes. With just a glance, Suyu was deeply immersed in them. He could not help but feel a surge of love. The enchantment path? Suyu's eyes were slightly dazed, but he quickly regained his composure. Among the 10,000 paths that he had cultivated, one of them was the enchantment path. When other living creatures cultivated this path, they had to deliberately activate it in order to use it. Only one kind of living creature was born with it. The Fox clan. You haven't shown yourself for nearly 100 years. I thought you were dead. Suyu said profoundly. Her identity was obvious. The nine-tailed white fox. The white fox that had been lodged in the 9-jade spiritual pearl should only have been left with a remnant soul. Unexpectedly, she had secretly recovered and could take human form. If I die, wouldn't it be too easy for you? The beautiful woman smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling. Suyu's eyes were calm as he stared at her. After a while, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She was still a remnant soul. Compared to the past, she was only slightly stronger. It seems like you have seen through me, the beautiful woman said slowly. In the past 100 years, your strength has changed dramatically. Suyu said calmly. Otherwise, you wouldn't have shown yourself, right? The beautiful woman covered her mouth and chuckled. It seems like you haven't forgotten our agreement. How could I forget? After all, this 9-jade spiritual pearl still doesn't belong to me, Suyu said calmly. When he had obtained the 9-jade spiritual pearl, he had made an agreement with the true owner of this spiritual pearl, the 9-tailed white fox. Suyu would bring her remains back to the demon clan, and the 9-jade spiritual pearl would truly belong to him. If he failed to fulfill the oath within 100 years, Suyu would suffer the backlash of the oath. But presumably, the white fox had never expected that the insignificant human back then would grow to become the divine warrior of heaven and earth today. Those oaths could no longer bind Suyu. It seems like you still remember. The beautiful woman said, there are only 23 years left of the 100-year agreement. Can you tell me where you are now? Suyu said, I'm still a 5-star civilization. I'm barely close to the Zodiac Palace. The beautiful woman nodded slightly. Faster than I expected. After all, you escaped from the Tao Tai's cage. It wasn't easy for you to reach this place. Suyu glanced at Xiao Dai. She must have told him. Your soul has recovered to this extent. In fact, you can attach yourself to the remains of the past and come back to life, right? Suyu said meaningfully. No, the agreement remains, the beautiful woman said. The devastatingly beautiful woman said, compared to me, my clansmen need my remains more. So, please bring them back. After a moment, the beautiful woman looked at Suyu's palm and said, Can you let me see your right palm? Suyu extended his palm without hesitation. Chapter 2033. It really is the mark of the Blood Lotus Tao demon. The beautiful woman looked serious. I didn't expect the Blood Lotus Tao demon to be found by you. So, is that box also in your hands? Suyu's pupils shrank slightly. The beautiful woman chuckled. Don't be nervous. I can't take it away. However, the thing in that box is very ominous. I think you should have sensed it, right? Indeed, the higher his cultivation, the more he sensed the ominous feeling in the box. If there was no accident, there must be something very dangerous inside. Do you want to know what's inside? The beautiful woman asked with a smile. Suyu regained his composure and said, "You won't tell me now. Haha, when you send me back to the demon dimension, I will not only tell you what's inside, but also tell you how to take it out safely." She knew it would be like this. The original oath could no longer bind Suyu, so she used a new condition to entice him to fulfill the promise. Okay. In fact, even if she didn't tell Suyu, he would still keep his promise and continue to fulfill the promise. After reaching a new agreement, Suyu looked at Xiaodai. Compared to the past, Xiaodai was much more demure now. She had an indescribably noble temperament, like a queen. When he was talking to the beautiful woman, Xiaodai didn't interrupt at all. She was extremely well-mannered. Compared to the past Xiaodai, she was like heaven and earth. "Mortal, who allowed you to stare at me?" Xiaodai said with a noble face. Suyu couldn't help but laugh. The greedy little girl from back then had grown into a noble queen overnight. "Don't show your ugly smile in front of me. Who is noble?" Xiaodai said elegantly and coldly. Suyu smiled. With a thought, he retrieved a bottle of level 9 potion from the outside world. I want to eat." Xiaodai stood up immediately and threw herself at him, snatching the level 9 potion into her hands. Her elegant and cold temperament disappeared in an instant. When she came back to her senses, Xiaodia's oval face instantly turned red. She said bitterly, You did it on purpose." Suyu smiled. "Then you can give the potion back to me. You are despicable. You are shameless. You exposed the scars of my childhood." As Xiaodai spoke, she poured the level 9 potion in her mouth and mumbled, "I won't compromise, I definitely won't." Suyu laughed. Yes. You will never compromise." After saying that, Suyu returned to the outside world with a smile. "The monster realm? Then, I really need to prepare well," Suyu muttered to himself. Closing his eyes, Suyu began to train silently. Just one day before the palace ship arrived, a maid from Mingxin residence suddenly knocked on the door. "Young master, there's a friend of yours outside. He's been waiting for you for a day. Do you want to see him?" "Oh," Suyu asked. "Miss Yin Qinshuang from the Four-Symbol Mansion. What is she doing here?" After thinking for a moment, Suyu left the Mingxin residence and went downstairs. Yin Qinshuang's eyes lit up, and she said, "You really are staying at Brightheart Residence. I was really afraid I was mistaken." "I'm sorry. I was always cultivating, so I didn't pay attention to the outside world," Suyu said. "It's all right." Yin Qinshuang was silent for a moment, and then she took out a recommendation letter that shone with golden light. The Four-Symbol Mansion seal was printed on it, and the recommendation letter was written in a graceful handwriting by a woman. "Here." Suyu took a look at the contents of the letter. The Four-Symbol Mansion had recommended the Tai Chi civilization to participate in the ecliptic meet, and the participant was the master of the Tai Chi faction, Suyu. He wrote, "Yin Qinshuang. This is a fake recommendation letter." Suyu was stunned. That handwriting should be from Yin Qinshuang, right? Yin Qinshuang's expression was slightly unnatural as she said, "What does that matter? The Ecliptic Palace only recognizes the Four-Symbol Mansion Lord Seals and not handwriting. It's fine as long as you can participate in the Ecliptic Palace assembly." Suyu was startled. She had stolen the Great Seal and forged a recommendation letter for Suyu in order to fulfill her promise. "I'm sorry for making you come all the way here, only to be treated like that. So, no matter what means I have to use, I want to give you a recommendation letter. You can use this one." Her heart was filled with regret. Suyu asked, "What will happen if your father finds out? What can I do? After all, I am his daughter." Yin Qinshuang spoke indifferently. However, traces of gloominess were concealed between her brows, and it was sufficient to display the anxiousness in her heart. Even if it was the daughter of the palace master who stole the palace master's seal, it would not be easy for her to get away with it. It was inevitable that she would be punished. After a long silence, Suyu sighed, took out a small piece of the Pathmaster's bone, and gave it to her. "Fine, I'll give it to you." Yin Qinshuang was pleasantly surprised, but she hesitated. "Is this okay? Take it." "I don't like owing favors," Suyu said, even though he did not actually need the recommendation letter. Yin Qinshuang received it gratefully. "The Four-Symbol Mansion will forever owe you a favor." Su Yu smiled. Perhaps only Yun Qinshuang would feel indebted to him. The father and son might not feel the same way. After receiving the Pathmaster's bone, Yun Qinshuang thanked him profusely, then returned to the four-symbol mansion happily. Unexpectedly, Yun Qinshuang and Yun Zhantian were already waiting for her in the mansion. "Did you give it to him?" Yun Qinshuang asked calmly. Yun Qinshuang's expression changed, and she panicked. "What did father say?" Yun Zhantian laughed coldly. "Hee, you think we don't know? When you stole the Palace Master's seal, we were there." Yun Qinshuang's heart thumped, as if she had missed something. "So, did you exchange it for the Pathmaster's bone?" Yun Qinshuang asked. Yun Qinshuang felt guilty and did not dare hide anything. She immediately took out the Pathmaster's bone. Yun Qinshuang looked at it and nodded. "It is indeed a pure Pathmaster's bone. It is more than enough to make 2 9-bone heart-saving pills." Seeing that he had no intention of punishing her, Yun Qinshuang heaved a sigh of relief. I knew it. Sooner or later, that lad would beg the four-symbol mansion for a recommendation letter. Yun Zhantian looked as if he had seen through Su Yu. Yun Qinshuang frowned. "You misunderstood. He gave it to me willingly." Yun Zhantian said calmly, "Don't speak up for him. If he had not begged you for a recommendation letter, would you have stolen the Palace Master seal?" Yun Qinshuang was unwilling to explain. They were too prejudiced against Su Yu, and anything she said would be superfluous. "Whatever you think, the Pathmaster's bone is already in my hands. You can make elixirs for the ancestor. I won't join in the fun," Yun Qinshuang said, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Yun Qinshuang could hear the hidden meaning in her words. "Where are you going? Anywhere is better than seeing you." Yun Qinshuang was disgusted by her father and brother's arrogance. She did not want to see them for even a moment longer. After saying this, she immediately turned to leave. Yun Zhantian snorted. "Ridiculous. Father did not even blame her for secretly giving that Su Yu a recommendation letter. Instead, she is blaming us." Yun Qinshuang said calmly, "Let her be. Just train you well. Your sister is destined to be unable to inherit the four-symbol mansion. Let her do whatever she wants. Tomorrow is the day the palace ship will pass by the four-symbol civilization. I believe that the palace ship is already carrying the heaven rulers of other civilizations. Once you board the ship, remember to be polite. Do you understand?" The palace ship was not like the four-symbol civilization. If he offended someone, no one would be able to help him. "Don't worry, father. I know how to be kind to others." That night, 2 figures appeared from the inter-civilization transportation portal, heading straight for a local restaurant. Brother Oyi. They were the other 2 of the Tianji 3 heroes. Oyi Huanya nodded. Let's go. I'll introduce you to my new friends." "Oh, a friend recognized by Brother Oyi? Could it be the heir of the four-symbol civilization, Yun Zhantian?" Oyi Huanyan shook his head. "Who does he think he is? I want to introduce a rather powerful person. Not only is he powerful, but his understanding of the martial Tao is even more shocking. He is omniscient. After interacting with him later, you will know how extraordinary he is." The 2 of them were slightly stunned. If they were of the same age, how different could their understanding of the martial Tao be? They did not think much of it and followed Oyi Huanyun to the Mingxin residence. The charming lady's eyes lit up. She said with a smile, "Brother Oyi is so polite. Are you going to let us enjoy a night at the Mingxin residence?" It was rumored that only the mansion master could stay in such a luxurious residence. They cannot even dream of it normally. The pale-faced scholar praised. Ever since Brother Oyi entered the top 100 of the ecliptic rankings, his reputation has risen. When he came to the four-symbol mansion, the local branch palace gave him special treatment. Both of their eyes flickered with envy. Oyi Huanyan laughed. "How can I be qualified to stay in such a place? It's the friend I mentioned." Hearing this, the 2 of them were filled with deep respect. A young man who could stay in a Mingxin residence must at least have an extremely high status. "When we get up later, I hope you will show more kindness." The charming lady said seriously, "Brother Oyi, don't worry. We can't wait to show our respect to such an outstanding peer. How could we offend him?" The three of them stood at the entrance of the Mingxin residence. After conveying their intention to meet with the maid, Suyu personally came down and welcomed them inside. "This is the new friend I mentioned, Suyu." Yi Huanyun introduced him to them. The charming lady and the pale-faced scholar introduced themselves one after another. "I'm Lu Ruxian." "I'm Shi Jun." Suyu nodded. "I'm Suyu. Please take a seat." The four of them had met today not only to board the palace ship tomorrow, but also for the ecliptic meet. It was the first time for everyone present, but the three of them had more or less heard a lot of insider information from their elders. Only Suyu knew nothing about it. Therefore, he readily agreed to let the four of them board the palace ship and interact with each other. When it came to the ecliptic meet, the three of them expressed their opinions and shared much of the information they knew, including the possible changes in the rules and rewards of the ecliptic meet that they had heard through the grapevine. On the other hand, Suyu listened attentively and did not say a word. Lu Ruxian blinked her pretty eyes and said, "Mr. Su, since you can stay in the Mingxin residence, you must have an expert backing you. If you have any useful information, why don't you share it with us?" Suyu said, "I don't have any background, and I know nothing about the ecliptic meet. I hope that you can share any information you have with us." Lu Ruxian and Shi Jun looked at each other, and they saw the confusion and contempt in each other's eyes. His behavior really showed that he knew nothing about the ecliptic meet. This contradicted what Yi Huanyun had said about his profound understanding of the martial path. Chapter 2034. Yi Huanyun saw this and found it incomprehensible. It shouldn't be. Suyu had a broad understanding of many profound paths, so why was he so unfamiliar with the ecliptic assembly? After talking for a long time, Suyu gained a lot. He understood many things about the ecliptic assembly that he didn't know. For example, fighting for the Bodhi fruit in the ecliptic assembly wasn't its purpose. It was only a reward. Its real purpose was to recruit all the talents in the world to enter the ecliptic palace to further their studies. The ecliptic palace had a lower, middle, and upper palace. Talents with different qualifications would enter different palaces after passing the ecliptic assembly's assessment. The higher the assessment ranking, the higher the level of the palace they would enter. The level of the palace determined the resources and position arrangement of the ecliptic palace. For example, if one was lucky enough to enter the middle palace, the starting position would be the person in charge of a 5-star civilization's branch palace. If it was the upper palace, one could directly become the person in charge of a half-star civilization's branch palace. For example, Huyun. In that position, one would not lack any resources at all. Moreover, the position was noble, and any living creature in the civilization would be respectful, even if it was the local master of the civilization. It could be said that the ecliptic assembly was a moment that determined the fate of many talents. Big Brother, Yi, the ecliptic assembly is about to begin. I wish to listen to Big Brother, Yi explain the difficult points of the martial Tao to us again. After talking about the ecliptic assembly, Lu Ruxian stared at Yi Huanyun and said. She glanced at Suyu and secretly shook her head. The reason she didn't ask him was because of Yi Huanyun. If she really asked him and he couldn't explain, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Shi Jun also looked at Yi Huanyun with anticipation and didn't pay attention to Suyu. Yi Huanyun smiled. In this regard, there are experts present, so I won't show off. Brother Su, please tell us about it. Suyu did not reject it. After all, courtesy demanded reciprocity. He knew about the ecliptic assembly from them, and now he was telling them about the martial path to return the favor. Lu Ruxian forced a smile. Oh, then let's hear Mr. Su's opinion. Suyu smiled calmly. We are about the same age, so what opinion is there to talk about? Let's just say we share it. Next, Suyu explained his understanding of the various great paths and answered their difficult questions. At first, Lu Ruxian didn't think much of it and didn't listen seriously. She thought to herself, how wide can a person who lacks common knowledge like the ecliptic meeting be? However, after listening to a few words, Lu Ruxian felt that it seemed to be the case. She couldn't help but listen carefully. In the end, the more she listened, the more ingenious she found it. All kinds of understanding were things she had never heard before. Many of them were related to the great path that she had cultivated. Suyu understood many of the problems that she had yet to realize. After listening for a while, she felt as if the clouds had parted and she could see the bright moon. Unknowingly, she sat up straight and listened attentively. However, due to the fact that he had not been focused enough, he was unable to keep up with Suyu's train of thought. When Suyu finished explaining, she only understood half of it. Many doubts in her heart had been solved, but many new doubts had arisen, making her anxious to solve them. While she was shocked by Suyu's knowledge, she also regretted not listening to him carefully at first. Now that Suyu was asked to repeat it again, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Shurjun, on the other hand, had been listening from the beginning. He understood most of it. His eyes were filled with shock and admiration. He solemnly cupped his fists and said, "Listening to your words is better than studying for 10 years. Brother Su's understanding of the martial path is profound. I think many elders of the 5-crown divine warriors are far inferior to you." These words weren't flattery, but the truth. This was the first time Shurjun had encountered someone who had an exceptional understanding of any great path. This feeling was as if he was immersed in the comprehension of the path masters. It was extremely wonderful. How could they know that Suyu often listened to the conversations of dozens of path masters? He was influenced by what he saw and heard, so he naturally had a deep understanding of everything in the universe. At the same time, he himself was a myriad path deity, so he had an understanding of many great paths. It was naturally easy for him to say something. "It's not late. Let's all rest in the house for the night. We will set off tomorrow." Lu Ruxian secretly felt that it was a pity. After thinking for a while, she quietly opened her eyes and waved at Shurjun, while Suyu and Uya Huanyun were both meditating. Shurjun looked surprised as he followed Lu Ruxian to the corridor. "Ruxian, what can't we talk about inside?" Shurjun asked. Lu Ruxian's face was slightly red as she said, "Can you make a copy of Suyu's memories for me?" Shurjun suddenly understood and shook his head. "It's very difficult. His explanation involved many realizations, so it can't be copied. You can ask him yourself." Lu Ruxian laughed bitterly. "How can I do that? Should I tell him that I wasn't listening to his explanation at the beginning?" Shurjun understood Lu Ruxian's mentality before, because he was the same. He thought about it and sighed. "It will take a month for the palace ship to reach the Ecliptic Palace. Can't you just build a relationship with him along the way?" "Build a relationship?" Lu Ruxian nodded her snow-white chin thoughtfully. The next day, a passenger ship with the Ecliptic Palace's symbol landed near the transportation civilization of the Four-Symbol Civilization. Suyu and the other three sensed it and hurried over. They held their invitation cards and stepped forward. Uya Huanyun took out a silver-white invitation card, while Lu Ruxian and Shurjun's were black. The invitation cards were divided into different grades, and the silver-white invitation card was far superior to the black one. When Suyu boarded the ship, he only showed a corner of it before he was allowed to enter. "Mr. Su, your invitation card must be of a very high grade, right?" Lu Ruxian came over and asked curiously. Suyu replied modestly, "It's all right. I was worried about getting an invitation card before this." Not only Lu Ruxian, but Uya Huanyun and the others were also surprised. "Brother Su, why didn't you say so earlier?" Uya Huanyun looked surprised. "If you want an invitation card, I could have sent you a recommendation card with the same effect." Suyu smiled calmly. "Haha, it's just a small matter. I wouldn't have troubled you. I've already gotten one." Only then did Uya Huanyun recall Yun Zhantian's attitude towards Suyu. He understood that Suyu had probably asked for a recommendation card from the Four Symbols Manor. The recommendation card from the Four Symbols Manor should be of the lowest grade, the Kuraki grade, which was even lower than Black Iron. After a pause, Uya Huanyun said, "That's fine. The lower the grade, the lower the strength of the participants. With Brother Su's fighting power, it'll be easier for you to stand out." Suyu smiled without saying anything. "Mr. Su, my family participated in the design of the palace ship and is very familiar with it. Let me show you around." "Thank you." Suyu did not understand where Lu Ruxian's enthusiasm came from. She did not seem very interested in him yesterday. Why did her attitude change so much after one night? Accompanied by her, Suyu took a quick look at the passenger ship. When he reached the bow of the ship, he saw a few youths chatting and laughing. Among them was Yun Jiantian. However, Yun Jiantian was only a peripheral figure. He stood at the periphery of the crowd, smiling but unable to say a word. Their gazes were attracted by the handsome youth surrounded by the crowd. Everyone, don't just talk to me. Come and get to know each other. This time, the palace ship has landed in the four-symbol civilization to welcome the heir of the four-symbol civilization, Yun Jiantian. The handsome youth smiled as he introduced Yun Jiantian to the crowd. Only then did the crowd seem to notice Yun Jiantian, and they all cupped their fists in greeting. Yun Jiantian happily returned the greeting. I heard that Brother Yun's cultivation has broken through to the middle stage of the Four Crowns Divine Warrior. In this ecliptic meet, I think he has a high chance of making it to the Middle Palace, the handsome youth said. Yun Jiantian said modestly, not at all. In front of everyone, Jiantian's strength is nothing. He was somewhat flattered. The handsome youth who spoke was none other than Li Ruochen, who was ranked 80 on the ecliptic list. His reputation was even greater than Ouya Huanyun's. Standing among the young talents from various civilizations, he was like a crane among chickens, respected by the crowd. Yun Jiantian enjoyed being praised in front of everyone. Brother Yun, you don't have to be so humble. I think highly of you. Li Ruochen nodded. As they were speaking, Li Ruochen suddenly saw two figures. His expression changed slightly, and he abandoned the crowd and walked over quickly, his face filled with surprise. Ruxian, why are you boarding the ship in the four-symbol civilization? I was thinking of paying you a visit when I arrived at the heavenly secret civilization. Lu Ruxian looked up and was also surprised. Oh, you're on this ship too. Li Ruochen's expression was somewhat reserved. He smiled. It's rare to meet you. I'll set up a banquet in the cabin. Shall we have a good chat? No need. I still want to accompany a friend for a walk. Lu Ruxian politely refused. She smiled lightly and walked away with Suyu. Friend? Li Ruochen looked at Suyu with a hint of surprise. In his impression, Lu Ruxian was proud and arrogant, only acknowledging people stronger than her. Could the silver-haired youth in front of him also be an expert? Li Ruochen's family and Lu Ruxian's family were old friends. However, the Li family's ancestor had made a meteoric rise, creating a half-path civilization. Lu Ruxian's ancestor was a vassal of the heavenly secret civilization. When the two families met by chance, Li Ruochen took a liking to Lu Ruxian. He wanted to take her as a concubine, but Lu Ruxian rejected him. Seeing Lu Ruxian accompanying a strange man intimately, talking and laughing, he naturally took it to heart. Why is he currying favor with Lu Ruxian? Yun Jiantian asked, slightly surprised. Li Ruochen heard this and turned his head. Oh, you know that silver-haired youth? Yun Jiantian nodded and said disdainfully, you don't just know him. He relied on the recommendation letter of our Four Symbols mansion to barely board the palace ship. Li Ruochen pondered. How strong is he? Where's he from? His strength is very weak. He's probably a 3 Crowns Emperor. As for his background, he's a lowly master from an unranked 5-star civilization. Li Ruochen's brows creased slightly. Isn't Ruxian's foresight a little too poor? You can even be friends with this kind of person. Hearing Li Ruochen's dissatisfaction, Yun Jiantian said, Brother Li, do you want me to give him a warning? He wanted to curry favor with Li Ruochen and naturally wanted to do so. Chapter 2035. He couldn't send someone to warn Lu Ruxian every time she made a friend, could he? Moreover, this person's strength and identity were mediocre, and he posed no threat at all. Lu Ruxian accompanied Suyu and familiarized herself with most of the corners of the passenger ship. As they conversed, they became much more familiar with each other. She took the opportunity to occasionally ask Suyu a few questions about the martial path. Every time she received an answer that exceeded her expectations, Lu Ruxian was exceptionally satisfied. The way he looked at Suyu became even more respectful and admiring. He thought to himself, I really don't know where his understanding of martial arts came from. As someone of the same age, I can't even compare to a 10,000th of him. I really feel ashamed. Not long after, the four of them met again. Jun suggested, "Since we have nothing to do on the way, why don't we spar and improve each other's strength?" The other two people cheered. Only Suyu looked a little helpless. Even if the three of them joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to defeat Suyu's single move. Hence, such a duel was meaningless. However, they were very interested, so Suyu did not want to dampen their enthusiasm. "Fine, I might as well give them some pointers along the way. I won't forget about getting to know them," Suyu thought to himself, then nodded in agreement. "I'll first spar with Big Brother Yi for a few days," Lu Rushin said. When Jun heard this, he rolled his eyes. "You're really cunning." There was no doubt that Ouya Huanyun was stronger amongst the people present here, and Ouya Huanyun would benefit more from sparring with him. He looked at Suyu helplessly and cupped his fists at him. "Brother Su, I will exchange blows with you." "No problem." The two of them moved to another place and began to spar. Jun made an inviting gesture. "Brother Su, please go ahead." He had heard Ouya Huanyun's evaluation that Suyu's abilities were roughly equivalent to half of Ouya Huanyun's. Suyu's abilities were at the peak of the initial stage of the Four-Crown Divine Warrior. As for Jun, he was a Four-Crown Martial Emperor at the middle stage, and his overall abilities should be stronger than Suyu's. All right, Suyu only used the Nirvana of the Evil Dragon to increase his physique to the early stage of the Four-Crown Martial Emperor, then used his divine technique to contend against it. This was the lowest level that Suyu could suppress his cultivation. If he suppressed it any lower, it would seem too deliberate. As soon as the two of them exchanged blows, Jun immediately felt an immense pressure. He thought to himself, "It is indeed, as Ouya Huanyun said, he is extremely powerful. To spar with him, one had to be serious. Be careful." Jun unleashed 80% of his strength. In theory, he should be able to suppress Suyu. However, when they actually fought, Jun shockingly discovered that he could not suppress Suyu at all. Moreover, the more they fought, the more shocked they became. In the end, after a few rounds, the victor was still undecided. Even if he used his full power, he still wouldn't be able to suppress Suyu. "Stop for a moment," Jun said in surprise. "Brother Su's strength is really very strange." He was clearly at the peak of the early stage of a Four-Crown Emperor, but he couldn't do anything to him. Suyu stopped and said, "Brother Shi's cultivation level is indeed high, but there are a few flaws." Jun was startled. Was he going to guide him? "Aren't you being too arrogant?" Suyu's cultivation level was lower than his. How could he guide him? Suppressing the disapproval in his heart, he politely said, "Brother Su, please speak." Suyu said, "Firstly, your rules are not perfect enough. You must have borrowed external forces when you broke through the door of the Divine Warrior of Heaven and Earth. Secondly, your cultivation level is superficial, and your foundation is not stable, especially before you break through to the Divine Warrior of Heaven and Earth. It is not stable." Jun, who had been smiling politely, suddenly changed his expression. His heart was in turmoil, and he stuttered, Brother Su, you?" Only a few people knew about the two flaws that Suyu had mentioned. Even Ouya Huanyun did not know about them. Could Suyu really have seen the various flaws in his cultivation from the short sparring? At once, he was filled with respect. "Please guide me, Brother Su." "I can't say that I'm guiding you. I'm just helping you to improve on your two flaws." Suyu took out a bottle of Taishu wine. "Drink this wine for a few days. It should be able to strengthen your rules and improve on the incomplete rules. As for the foundation of your cultivation level, you'll need to suppress the desolate power in your body and train it continuously." Jun was skeptical. In the following days, he patiently improved on his flaws according to Suyu's guidance. 10 days later, bang, Suyu and Jun finished sparring. Jun had a bitter smile. "I have let you down. It looks like I haven't improved much." It had been difficult for him to suppress Suyu in their previous sparring, and he was still unable to do so. It was clear that his abilities had not improved significantly, and his flaws were still there. Suyu calmly said, "Haste makes waste. Your flaws have existed for a long time, and you will naturally need a long time to improve. At that moment, Ouya Huanyun and Lu Ruxian had also finished sparring for 10 days. Lu Ruxian's charming face was filled with joy. It was obvious that she had gained a lot. A stark contrast to the dejected Shi Jun. Shi Jun, why do you look so dejected? Didn't you just lose 10 days of sparring with Brother Oyi? It shouldn't be like this, right? Lu Ruxian subconsciously thought that Shi Jun was unhappy because he had not gained anything from sparring with Su Yu. Unexpectedly, Shi Jun shook his head with a bitter smile. I have only let down Brother Su's guidance. I have let him down. Lu Ruxian and Ouya Huanyun were stunned for a moment. Su Yu had guided Shi Jun? Was there some misunderstanding? Lu Ruxian comforted him. In the next stage, you will accompany Brother Oyi. But Lu Ruxian smiled proudly. Before that, why don't the two of us first spar? Shi Jun waved his hand helplessly. Forget it. My abilities are not as good as yours. Although both of them were at the middle stage of the four-crown martial emperors, Lu Ruxian had always been stronger in their sparring sessions. Now that she looked so happy, she must have gained a lot from sparring with Ouya Huanyun, and her abilities had improved. If they fought again, there would be no doubt who would win. Come on, just one match, Lu Ruxian said with a smile. Unable to dissuade her, Shi Jun sighed and said, All right, I'll let you be proud for a while. He knew that Lu Ruxian wanted to show off her improved abilities. Both of them knew each other very well, and they were not afraid of hurting each other. Hence, they attacked with all their might. Thud, thud, thud. Unexpectedly, when their rules came into contact, Shi Jun was like a boulder, while Lu Ruxian was forced to retreat. Her pretty face was blank, and she shouted, Again! Her beautiful figure flickered, and she charged forward again to fight Shi Jun. After 10 moves, Lu Ruxian's body trembled, and she was sent flying hundreds of meters away. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, and the chains of law also became slightly illusory. On the other hand, Shi Jun was completely fine, and it was clear who was stronger. Shi Jun was in disbelief, and he asked in surprise, Ruxian, are you not using your full strength? Lu Ruxian's pretty face turned red. She gritted her teeth and attacked again, unwilling to admit defeat. The two of them fought intensely, and it was clear that they had no intention of holding back. However, within 100 moves, Lu Ruxian was forced back 7 times, and her body was already covered with injuries that were neither light nor heavy. Shi Jun was truly shocked, and he asked, Ruxian, your strength, why has it regressed? Lu Ruxian was also confused. How could she have regressed? She should have improved by quite a bit. It's not that Ruxian has regressed. It's that you, Shi Jun, have improved greatly. Ouya Huanyun's eyes flickered with light. Lu Ruxian was shocked, and she said, In a short 10 days, you can't surpass me? One had to know that it was very difficult for Shi Jun to defeat Lu Ruxian in the past. Moreover, Lu Ruxian had also improved in the past 10 days. This could only be explained if he had improved immensely in the past 10 days. Shi Jun was at a loss for a moment before he came to a realization. He looked at Su Yu excitedly and said, Could it be that my 10 days of training were effective? Su Yu smiled but did not speak. The reason why Shi Jun felt that his strength had not improved was because Su Yu had been secretly increasing his true strength during the sparring sessions, causing Shi Jun to feel that his strength had not changed at all. Now that he had exchanged blows with Lu Ruxian, he realized that his strength had improved greatly. It could only be described as lightning speed. Lu Ruxian said in disbelief, Shi Jun, did you really receive pointers from Mr. Su? Shi Jun said excitedly, Yes. Brother Su is very knowledgeable. In just 100 rounds of sparring, he pointed out many of my shortcomings and gave me pointers to correct them. I did not expect the results to be so remarkable. Lu Ruxian and Ouya Huanyun secretly gasped. Noticing the shortcomings of others might not be a big deal, but being able to give pointers to someone to correct them was another problem. Suddenly, Lu Ruxian blinked her beautiful eyes and ran over with a smile. She pushed Shi Jun aside and held onto Su Yu's arm. Mr. Su, I will have to ask you to guide me properly until we reach the Ecliptic Palace. At this moment, Jun came back to his senses and said, "No way. How can you be so unreasonable? I will only spar with Brother Su for 10 days, but you want 20. Lu Ruxian dragged Su Yu away without a care in the world. She said, "We agreed just now, and I don't see you objecting. It's too late to regret it now. Mr. Su, let's go quickly." She pulled Su Yu along as she ran, her face full of anticipation. Jun did not give up and quickly chased after them. Ouya Huanyun was left smiling bitterly. In the past, the two of them had fought to spar with Su Yu, but now no one wanted him. This Su Yu is really unfathomable. In just 10 short days, he had caused such a drastic change in Jun. He really did not know how he had done it. At the stern of the ship, in the end, the two of them reached a compromise. The two of them would take turns to spar with Su Yu and receive his pointers. Lu Ruxian was very dissatisfied and secretly regretted choosing to spar with Ouya Huanyun. She had allowed Jun to take advantage of her. Now, Jun's overall abilities were still slightly above hers, so it would not be easy to win him back. "Mr. Su, you can't be biased. I also want to improve by leaps and bounds in 10 days and defeat Jun." Lu Ruxian held on to Su Yu's arm tightly, her whole body almost hanging on to him as she spoke coquettishly. Su Yu could not take it anymore and tried to pull away from her. However, Lu Ruxian clung onto him tightly, as if she was afraid that he would escape. Just like that, Su Yu sparred with her for more than 100 rounds. Then, he expressed his observations and suggestions for improvement. Lu Ruxian was shocked when she heard this, and she clung on to him even tighter. Her pretty eyes shone with excitement. "Anything else? I would like to hear more." At this moment, a group of talented youths arrived at the stern of the ship, talking and laughing. It was Li Ruochen and the others. They had been sparring with each other for more than 10 days, and they had come to the stern of the ship to have a feast and relax. However, as soon as they arrived, they discovered that there were people there. When they glanced around casually, they saw a man and a woman hugging each other tightly. They even thought that they were a couple. Chapter 2036. That woman was none other than Lu Ruxian. He also happened to remember that man. It was the small fry he had looked down on, Su Yu. Sensing the commotion behind her, Lu Ruxian turned around and nodded politely with a smile. She continued to consult Su Yu as if there was no one else around. Su Yu did not pay much attention to them, saying, "These are the problems. I have already explained how to correct them. Next, it will depend on how you train." Lu Ruxian was pleasantly surprised, saying intimately, "Thank you, Brother Su Yu." Li Ruochen forced a smile and walked forward. "Ruxian, are we having a martial exchange? Would you like to join us?" As he spoke, he did not care about Su Yu at all. Lu Ruxian had seen and experienced Su Yu's prowess with her own eyes. Why would she be interested in joining someone else? "I appreciate your good intentions, but I have friends." "Thank you," she politely and directly refused. Li Ruochen's expression sank, looking at Su Yu with a profound gaze. He did not understand why Lu Ruxian would be interested in such a man. Was there something special about him? Behind him, Yun Zhantian rolled his eyes, walking forward with a smile. "Miss Lu, Brother Li is ranked 80th on the ecliptic list. In the past 10 days, we have listened to his lectures on a martial path and learned a lot. Why waste time on a useless person?" "Useless? Who? Su Yu?" Lu Ruxian secretly shook her head. "If Su Yu was useless, then what were you? I like it. What is it to you?" Lu Ruxian replied rudely. She was disgusted by people of the same age as Yun Zhantian, who thought highly of himself. Yun Zhantian was deflated, his expression embarrassed. He looked at Su Yu and sneered. "Not bad. Learning to play up to women. Not bad." Hearing his sarcastic emphasis, Su Yu's expression was indifferent. He turned a deaf ear and said to Lu Ruxian, "Let's go somewhere else." Lu Ruxian readily agreed and said, "Headless flies buzzing around my ears. It's quite annoying." The headless fly she was referring to was naturally Yun Zhantian. Pulling Su Yu along, Lu Ruxian could not wait to find a quiet place to train. Li Ruochen stood his ground and did not stop him. However, his eyes were slightly gloomy as he sighed in a low voice. "Ruxian, what kind of eyesight do you have? For the sake of your future, I might have to let you see his true face during the ecliptic Tao meeting. The palace ship traveled through the void until 1 month later. The coast of a continent appeared in his line of sight. That's right, the coast of the continent. Standing on the deck of the palace ship, Suyu gazed at the shore of the continent with a look of deep disbelief. Compared to the various civilizations he had seen in the past, the scene in front of him was indeed a continent-level existence. At a glance, it was impossible to see the end of the ecliptic palace, only the edge of the continent. The ecliptic palace. Ouya Huanyun, Shi Jun, and Lu Ruxian all looked shocked. Even though it wasn't their first time seeing the ecliptic palace, they were still shocked by it. Apart from its size, one could see with the naked eye that the shore was densely covered in layers of restrictions. Each of the seals was more powerful than the martial emperors. Anyone who tried to barge into the ecliptic palace would only end up as ashes. As they approached the shore, the palace ship released a unique signal. The restrictions sensed it and opened automatically, allowing the small ship to enter. As the palace ship approached the shore, a deep voice reached everyone's ears. Disembark immediately and head for the ecliptic Tao meeting. The 30-odd people on the ship disembarked one after another. Under the guidance of the crew, they used the transportation portal. Suyu felt a wave of vertigo from long-distance teleportation. It was even further than teleporting between five-star civilizations. However, when he revealed himself, Suyu was surprised to find that he was still within the range of the shore. Just how big is the ecliptic palace? Suyu was secretly shocked, restraining the emotions in his heart. Suyu scanned his surroundings and immediately found an extremely spacious arena in front of him. It could accommodate thousands of people fighting at the same time. In front of the arena, 300 people had gathered and were chatting with each other. Some were from five-star civilizations, while others were from half-path civilizations. Hurry up and gather there. The guide urged impatiently. Suyu and the others hurried over immediately and waited quietly. Looking at the giant red arena, Suyu understood what was going on. He had already learned about the ecliptic Tao meeting from the conversations of Ouya Huanyun and the others. The meeting would be held in 10 regions, and they were in the red region. In the end, the red region would determine the top 20. The top 20 of the 10 regions would gather together and compete in the top 100 ranking competition. The higher one's ranking was, the more generous the rewards. If one could enter the top 100, one could enter the lower palace of the ecliptic palace. The top 50 could enter the middle palace of the ecliptic palace. The top 10 could enter the upper palace. However, the top 50 were mostly occupied by the outstanding geniuses nurtured by the ecliptic palace. Very few geniuses from outside could occupy a place. No one could compete with them for the top 10. After waiting patiently in the red region for several days, more and more geniuses gathered there. In the end, 1,000 people arrived. Suyu, Ouya Huanyun, and the others were chatting when suddenly 10 snow-white winged white horses approached from the horizon. Screams rang out everywhere they passed. Even Ouya Huanyun, Lu Ruxian, and Shi Jun looked at them with deep respect. The geniuses of the ecliptic palace are here. Lu Ruxian's eyes were filled with deep jealousy. Only the geniuses of the ecliptic palace are qualified to ride the white snow holy horses. I wonder how strong the 10 geniuses of the ecliptic palace are. In every ecliptic assembly, the ecliptic palace would send 200 geniuses nurtured by them to the 10 regions to compete with the geniuses from outside. If they were lucky, they might not encounter a strong opponent. But if they were unlucky, they might be eliminated in the first round. When the 10 white snow holy horses approached, their faces were revealed to the crowd. Bai Jianfei ranked 36th. Yi Minghua ranked 47th. Zhang Wentian ranked 53rd. Oh my god, there are 13 people in the top 100 of the ecliptic list. Lu Ruxian exclaimed, her pretty face pale. Even Ouya Huanyun's expression was extremely ugly. 13 people in the top 100 meant that there were only 7 places left for the thousands of people to compete for. The pressure was unimaginable. Suyu's expression was calm, and he did not panic too much. Even if he did not encounter a strong opponent now, could the next round be avoided? It was only a matter of time before he fought with the strong fighters of the Ecliptic Palace. Moreover, among those people, Bai Jinfei, who was ranked the highest, was only a 4-crown late-stage martial artist. For Suyu, it would not be too difficult. Entering the top 20 this time should not be a problem. The 200 people landed one after another, occupying a corner alone. They did not communicate with the geniuses from the foreign civilizations. Pride and superiority were released in an invisible manner. Everyone, get into the arena. Suyu obeyed and climbed into the arena with Ouya, Huanyun, and the others. When everyone was there, the arena under their feet suddenly produced a powerful space power, and everyone's positions were randomly disrupted. When they stood in their positions again, Ouya, Huanyun, and the others were nowhere to be found, and they were replaced by strangers. At the same time, the arena changed again, isolating the 100 people closest to it with space power, forming a small arena. A metal puppet appeared in the center of the arena, and it swept its gaze across the crowd with an expressionless face. As it swept its back, a number appeared on everyone's chest. Suyu's number was 18. Odd number against even number, the puppet said calmly. This was a mixed battle, with 50 people fighting 50 people. Once someone's life was threatened, he would be judged to have failed and be eliminated. Finally, when there were only 10 people left on the arena, the mixed battle ended. Mixed battle begin. The arena was not large, and everyone was within each other's attack range. Therefore, no strategy could be used, and they could only attack preemptively. In an instant, the scene became chaotic. All kinds of divine techniques and rules of different powers filled the entire small arena. Everyone had nowhere to hide, and they fought with all their might. Therefore, a large number of people were immediately eliminated from the beginning. They were swept out of the arena by the space power, causing the small arena to become empty, and those who wanted to hide had nowhere to hide. When the number of people was reduced to 20, the mutual attacks were quite rare. The number of people on each side could be counted clearly. Unfortunately, the even-number team that Suyu was in was at a serious disadvantage. There were only 7 people left on their side, while the other side had 14 people, more than twice their number. What was more difficult was that the other side had a genius from the Ecliptic Palace, who was ranked 83rd. On Suyu's side, the genius from the Ecliptic Palace with the highest cultivation was ranked 95th. But the worry was that the other side would not take the initiative to provoke this genius from the Ecliptic Palace, who was ranked 95th. Their targets were obviously Suyu and the other 6 people. As expected, apart from the 95th genius who took the initiative to attack the other side, and the other side was forced to retaliate, no one else attacked him. The remaining 12 people all targeted Suyu and the other 5 people. Among them, the genius from the Ecliptic Palace, Ao Yunyang, who was ranked 83rd, had his eyes on Suyu. You seem to be very good at dodging. Ao Yunyang's eyes were filled with contempt. He had seen with his own eyes that Suyu had never taken the initiative to attack during the battle. He had always chosen to evade, and he was able to evade very cleverly. The others had either been eliminated or were injured to varying degrees. Only Suyu was unscathed. Oh, Suyu said indifferently. He just did not want to bully others. Otherwise, if he had attacked, the other side would have been eliminated very quickly. Although I don't know how you managed to remain unscathed in this chaotic battle, it ends here. Ao Yunyang's body flashed, and he appeared within 30 feet of Suyu, instantly displaying his level 5 law. With a clanging sound, the chain passed through the virtual shadow that Suyu had left behind and shot into the arena. Ao Yunyang was slightly stunned. It was so fast that he did not even have time to react. Chapter 2037. Not yet. Ao Yunyang's body trembled. His opponent was only a 4-crown early-stage divine warrior, while he was a 4-crown middle-stage divine warrior. So what if he was captured? But just as he was about to retaliate, a cold feeling of death invaded his body. At that moment, his hands and feet were cold, and he felt the cold illusion of death. At the same time, space energy appeared around him, sweeping him away. Ao Yunyang eliminated. There were only 20 people left, and the situation on the arena was clear. Ao Yunyang being eliminated by an unremarkable human naturally did not escape their eyes, causing waves of shock. He eliminated Ao Yunyang. That can't be. Ao Yunyang is ranked 83rd on the ecliptic list. How could he be eliminated so easily? Bewilderment and shock filled everyone's eyes. Among the odd-numbered side, those who were prepared to target Suyu felt their scalps go numb. They all moved away from Suyu, no one daring to find trouble with him. Suyu stood leisurely in the corner with his hands behind his back, waiting for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Only 10 people were left in the arena. The mixed battle is over, the metal puppet announced. The odd-numbered side relaxed, looking at Suyu in unison. They were secretly glad that this person had not intervened. Otherwise, the outcome would have been different. Not long after, the battles on the other arenas ended. There were only 100 people left from the original 1,000 on the arena. When the space barrier dissipated, they looked at each other. Those who could enter the top 100 in such an intense battle were the elites of the elites. Most of them were geniuses from the Ecliptic Palace. Less than 20 people were from other civilizations. Among them were well-known fighters like Li Ruochen and Ouya Huanyan. Following them were Yun Zhantian, Shi Jun, Lu Ruxian, and others ranked around 150th on the ecliptic list. Yun Zhantian shook the blood-colored robe on his body, taking a deep breath. His mood was relatively calm, even though it was a little dangerous. With his abilities, entering the top 100 in the sub-region would not be a problem. He looked at the people from the other civilizations, giving them a friendly smile. After all, they were all from other civilizations. Within the Ecliptic Palace, they were natural allies. When he smiled at them, they all responded with a smile. However, when Yun Zhantian's gaze swept past Ouya Huanyun and nodded at the person beside him, his expression stiffened and he couldn't help but ask, "Why are you still standing on the stage?" He almost thought that he was mistaken. How could Suyu, a late-stage 3-crown martial artist, last until the end of the chaotic battle? Right now, the top 100 were all at least early-stage 4-crown emperors, and they were all relatively strong ones. 3-crown emperors simply couldn't get a foothold. Upon hearing this, Suyu calmly asked, "Why are you standing here?" "Nonsense. With my strength, isn't it normal for me to be standing here?" Yin Zhantian said bluntly. Suyu's face was calm. "Isn't that it?" Yin Zhantian could not help but laugh. "Are you trying to tell me that it is also because of your strength? What else can I do?" Suyu asked. Yin Zhantian chuckled. "You can ask everyone here if they believe me or not." Suyu smiled but did not say anything. It would be a waste of time to speak to someone who thought highly of himself and looked down on others. Beside him, Ouya Huanyan frowned as he stared at Yin Zhantian and said indifferently, "Are you very strong? Why don't we have a spar?" He did not like Yin Zhantian's attitude of looking down on others. With Suyu's strength, it was normal for him to be in the top 100. What was so ridiculous about that? Yin Zhantian shut his mouth. In front of Ouya Huanyan, he really did not have the qualifications to be arrogant. "Oh, then you are very strong? Why don't we have a spar?" A slightly cold voice came from behind Yin Zhantian. Li Ruochen's clothes were spotless. He calmly walked over, glancing at Suyu before looking straight at Ouya Huanyan. Ouya Huanyan was not afraid. "Haha, sure. I have long heard of Li Ruochen's name. Since we have met, let's have a good fight." His fighting spirit soared, his face filled with intense interest. The two of them actually looked like they were about to fight over someone else's matters. But Li Ruochen calmly said, "Oh, you want to experience the taste of defeat so quickly? Sure, see you in the arena." "Haha, anytime." Ouya Huanyan's face was full of anticipation. Li Ruochen stared at Suyu and said calmly, "Although I don't know what kind of luck you had, as you only managed to enter the top 100 by encountering a group of weak opponents, the real test has just begun. Don't lose too miserably." "Haha." Suyu merely chuckled. The conflict between the two sides had not escalated, but anyone with a discerning eye could see the formless smoke of gunpowder. The competition for the top 10 began. The metal puppet announced again. The 100 people in the arena were randomly divided into 20 groups, each group of 5 people. The first among the five would become the top 20 in the region and qualify to head to the Ecliptic Palace's main palace to compete for the rankings. It could be said that that was the place to truly display one's strength. The higher-ups of the Ecliptic Palace would not pay attention to the current regional competition. Su Yu's feet shook. When he appeared again, he was in an isolated space. He could not help but lament that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Yin Tian was in the same region, as well as three other geniuses from the Ecliptic Palace. One of them was Zhang Wentian, who was ranked 53rd. When Yin Tian saw this person, his face immediately turned pale. Against such a strong opponent, his chances of winning were slim. Although he had made bold promises to his father that he would fight his way into the top 50, in reality, he was still very clear about his own capabilities. In a real fight, it would be difficult to emerge victorious. This meant that he would be eliminated from the regional competition and would not be able to make it into the top 100. "May I ask for your name?" Zhang Wentian suddenly asked. Yin Tian subconsciously cupped his fists and responded, "I am Yin Tian from the Four-Symbol Civilization." Only he and Su Yu were from another civilization. The other party was obviously asking about Yin Tian, who was not weak. "I'm not asking you. I'm asking him," Zhang Wentian said indifferently, glancing at Yin Tian. Yin Tian's strength was nothing in his eyes. Why would he deliberately be concerned? What he was concerned about was Su Yu. During the short break, just now, the people of the Ecliptic Palace exchanged the strong opponents they had encountered. Among them, Su Yu had caused a stir among the geniuses of the Ecliptic Palace. Ao Yunyang, who was ranked 83rd, had been eliminated by this person. His level of danger was assessed as high, even more dangerous than Li Ruochen and Uya Huanyan. After all, Li Ruochen had spent a lot of effort to barely make it into the top 80 of the Ecliptic list. But Su Yu had defeated Ao Yunyang, who was ranked 83rd, without much effort. He really did not expect that Su Yu, the most dangerous person, would be assigned to his group. Yin Tian was startled. "Not asking me?" He looked at Su Yu, slightly puzzled. What was so special about him that Zhang Wentian of the Ecliptic Palace would pay attention to him? "Su Yu, I am Zhang Wentian. Since we have met, I hope that you will not be stingy with your teachings," Zhang Wentian said. "No problem," Su Yu said indifferently. Hearing the conversation between the two, Yin Tian frowned deeply. Did Zhang Wentian misunderstand something? He had actually treated Su Yu as someone of the same generation, while he, Yin Tian, was ignored. After thinking for a moment, he cupped his fists and said, "I am Yin Tian. I hope that when we fight later, Brother Zhang will not be stingy with your teachings." Zhang Wentian glanced at him and nodded indifferently. "Qi Qing, later you will come and meet this Yin. Yin something." Qi Qing was ranked 71st on the Ecliptic list. He said reluctantly, "Well, I had originally wanted to personally exchange pointers with Su Yu. Since Brother Zhang has chosen first, I have no choice. I will use this Yin Tian to pass the time." Hearing this, Yin Tian could not help but feel resentful. Were the Ecliptic Palace's geniuses blind? Ignoring the powerful Yin Tian, he was interested in the useless Su Yu. It was really inexplicable. He looked at Su Yu, his gaze even more unfriendly. At this moment, the metal puppet announced, "The battle for the top 20 in the region has officially begun. Number 18 versus number 109. Su Yu, number 18, took a step forward. Yin Tian's laughter suddenly sounded behind him. He took a step forward and stood opposite Su Yu. On his chest, there was a number 109. He was the opponent Su Yu wanted to challenge. "You are destined to be defeated at my hands." Yin Tian felt that the so-called heavens existed. He was destined to be unable to enter the top 20, but he could eliminate Su Yu before he was defeated. This could barely be considered a consolation. At least he was not eliminated in a very embarrassing manner. Su Yu turned and looked at him indifferently. The spar has not even begun, and the outcome has already been determined? The three Ecliptic Palace's geniuses watching the battle secretly sympathized with Yin Tian. Of all the people he could have fought, he just had to fight Su Yu. It was one thing to fight Su Yu, but he did not have the slightest bit of self-awareness. They really did not know where he got the confidence to shamelessly boast that the most dangerous person in the region would be defeated by him. Yunjian shook his head. You are really unreasonable. You were lucky enough to enter the top 100 in this region. Even at this moment, you are still holding onto the mentality of a fluke. It is really sad. I think you have been with Lu Ruxian for too long and mistakenly believe that you are very capable. Unfortunately, the truth is cruel. It is not good for you to live in a dream like this. Yunjian slowly released the cultivation level of a middle stage 4-crown divine warrior, even using his level 6 law. His face was calm as he said, "For the sake of my sister, I will personally beat you up so that you can wake up from your stupor. I will let you know how much you are worth." After saying this, his figure flickered, and he raised his hand to slap Suyu's face. Suyu's expression was calm. He had tolerated this successor of the 4-symbol manner many times. Now, he still wanted to slap and humiliate him in front of everyone. Chapter 2038. As his voice fell, Suyu had already disappeared from where he stood. A slap landed on Yun Zhantian's cheek. Slap. The crisp sound of a slap echoed throughout the arena. Yun Zhantian's palm was still in midair, but he had already been slapped. His body rolled half a circle, somewhat confused, not quite understanding how he had been slapped. After regaining his senses, he roared, "You dare slap me, slap." He was still yelling when another slap landed on his face. "Ah, you, slap." It was another slap. "I slap, another slap." Yun Zhantian was completely stunned, spinning in place like a spinning top. After 18 consecutive slaps, Yun Zhantian's cheeks were red and swollen, his mouth full of blood, and he stumbled to the ground. Suyu withdrew his hand and looked down at him. "Are you awake?" The one who needed to wake up was not Suyu but him. Yun Zhantian's head was dizzy. He covered his cheek and looked up at Suyu, his eyes full of fear and shock. Although he was arrogant, he was not stupid. To be unable to fight back, the other party's strength was definitely far superior to his. His true strength was not the 3-crown later stage martial artist that his sister had spoken of, but the 4-crown later stage martial artist. Zhang Wentian and the other two who were watching the battle gasped. Although they had expected Suyu's strength to be very strong, they had never imagined that he would be so strong that Yun Zhantian could not fight back. They asked themselves if they could do it to such an extent. The heaven ruler of the ecliptic list, Qi Qing, could not help but shiver. He had wanted to challenge Suyu personally, but now it looked like he was lucky he had not been picked. Suyu was too strong. Suyu looked at Yun Zhantian indifferently. "Do you want to continue?" Yun Zhantian trembled, his face full of horror. "I admit defeat." He was afraid that Suyu would attack again and hurriedly admitted defeat. The metal puppet sensed it and immediately teleported him away. In the end, only Suyu and the other 3 were left. Looking up at them, Suyu smiled indifferently. "Do we need to compete?" Zhang Wentian smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect that there would be a heaven's pride like you outside of the Ecliptic Palace Hall. There is always someone better than you." Before coming here, Zhang Wentian and the other heaven's prides of the Ecliptic Palace were determined to win the ranking of their region. He felt that he could easily enter the top 20 of the region. But now, the cruel reality was that they were not fated to enter the top 20. However, even if I lose, I have to fight with all my strength. Zhang Wentian was full of fighting intent. Suyu calmly nodded. "All right, then I'll be more serious." Hearing this, the faces of Zhang Wentian and others changed. Could it be that the strength shown just now was not his true strength? Number 18 versus number 29. Number 29 was Zhang Wentian. He took a deep breath and gathered all the great desolate Ian power in his body to form his own chains of law. So he took out the azure sword and slashed at the sky. Bury the heavens. When the sword came down, it was as if heaven and earth had been buried and destroyed. Zhang Wentian only felt cold all over, as if death had brushed past him. His heart was thumping madly, and a sense of danger that he had never felt before surged in his heart. The metal puppet sensed it and immediately teleported away. Number 18 wins. The next 2 people were also eliminated without any suspense. Su Yu's group was the first to compete for the first place. Subsequently, the rest of the groups competed for the first place. In addition to Su Yu, there were only Li Ruochen, Guya Huanyun, Shi Jun, and Lu Ruxian, who were not Heaven's Prides of the Ecliptic Palace. Where is Zhang Wentian? The top-ranked Heaven's Prides of the Ecliptic Palace gathered and suddenly found that Zhang Wentian was not in the top 20. Bai Jianfei, who was ranked 36th, was slightly startled. Is there something wrong? With Zhang Wentian's strength, how could he not enter the top 20? And Qi Qing. He also did not enter the top 20. Yi Minghua, who was ranked 47th, had a dignified expression. The selected Heaven's Prides of the Ecliptic Palace were all deeply surprised. Zhang Wentian and Qi Qing were both famous Heaven's Prides in the top 100 of the Ecliptic list. They were definitely able to get a seat in the top 100 competition of the overall region later. How could they not even pass the regional selection? They did not understand what had happened at all. Bai Jianfei's eyes were sharp. When he glanced at Li Ruochen, he shook his head slightly. On the surface, Li Ruochen was the most powerful Heaven's Prides of the foreign civilization, but the people of the Ecliptic Palace knew very well that there was an unknown person hidden in the foreign civilization. Su Yu. Bai Jianfei and Yi Minghua looked at Su Yu one after another, their eyes revealing deep suspicion. If there was anyone who could eliminate Zhang Wentian and the others, it was only him who had some possibility. At this time, Guya Huanyun and the others also discovered the existence of Su Yu, and their faces showed deep surprise. Congratulations, Brother Su. You have also successfully entered the top 20, Guya Huanyun said. Lu Ruxian was even more surprised and said playfully, of course, to be able to give us pointers in our cultivation. How could his strength be low? Although they said so, in fact, they were a little surprised by Su Yu's entry. With his strength and good luck, he could enter the top 20. Shi Jun smiled. Brother Su did not encounter a strong opponent, which is a cause for celebration. In this regard, Guya Huanyun deeply agreed and sighed. Our division can be said to be crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Even strong people like Zhang Wentian and Qi Qing, who were ranked in the top 100, were eliminated by the mysterious person. If we meet him, we will definitely be eliminated. Shi Jun was surprised. Who could it be? Could it be Li Ruochen? Him. Guya Huanyun shook his head. It can't be him. Although Li Ruochen's strength is good, he is not strong enough to eliminate Zhang Wentian. Then who could it be? The foreign civilization is nothing more than a few of us. Guya Huanyun pondered. It is likely to be the Heaven's Prides of the Ecliptic Palace. They are also full of competition. It is likely that some Heaven's Prides of the Ecliptic Palace are hiding their strength and only revealed it at this moment. This was the most reasonable explanation. As the four of them were talking, Li Ruochen came over, stared at Su Yu suspiciously, and asked the four of them, have you seen Yin Zhantian? He was very curious as to why Su Yu could stay, but Yin Zhantian could not. Was Su Yu's luck so good? Guya Huanyun's face was indifferent, and he did not respond. So what if he had seen him? Li Ruochen questioned him with a condescending attitude. Why should he answer? Shi Jun and Lu Ruxian also turned a deaf ear to him, treating him like air. Li Ruochen's expression darkened slightly, knowing that he was being ostracized. He stared at Su Yu with hostility. I have to say, your luck is as good as ever to be able to enter the top 20. In fact, it was not just him. Guya Huanyun and the others also attributed Su Yu's luck to the ranks. It's all right. Su Yu was indifferent. He paused for a moment, then said, I have seen Yin Zhantian. He is in our group. If you want to find him, you should go to the eliminated concentration camp to look for him. He should be there. Nonsense. Since Yin Zhantian was not here, he must have been transferred away because of the elimination. I am asking, who defeated him? Su Yu pointed to himself. It was me. You? Li Ruochen shook his head, his eyes filled with contempt. You really know how to flatter yourself. With your strength, you are probably not even a tenth of Yin Zhantian's. Forget it. Your luck can only end here. You will feel despair in the next top 100 rankings of the region. As he spoke, Li Ruochen clasped his hands behind his back and walked to a corner alone. Suyu shrugged his shoulders. Li Ruochen took it for granted, and Suyu was too lazy to explain further. The competition for the top 20 of the coastal region has ended. Now, I invite the finalists to head to the Ecliptic Palace's plaza. Hearing this, the fighting spirit of the 20 people present erupted. The sparring in the different regions could only be considered a warm-up. The real competition would come next. Ouya Huanyun's eyes were also filled with nervousness. On the whole, their coastal region's luck was not bad. Among the strong martial artists of the Ecliptic Palace, the highest ranked was by Jianfei, who was ranked 36th. The rest of the people who were ranked higher were allocated to the other 9 great battle regions. Hence, the plaza of the Ecliptic Palace was where the true geniuses gathered. Under the guidance of the people of the Ecliptic Palace, they boarded the transportation spell and once again went through an ultra-long distance transportation. This transportation process lasted for a whole day and night. Suyu's head was splitting as he rode. He felt as if he was not traveling across a single civilization, but a long distance of over 100 5-star civilizations. When his feet touched the ground, Suyu endured the discomfort and forced himself to stand. Before he could open his eyes, he heard a sound of surprise. Oh, the coastal battle region has a seedling with pretty good soul energy. He can still stand after such a long-distance transportation. Not bad, not bad. Suyu opened his eyes and saw a green-robed, white-bearded old man smiling as he stroked his beard. Looking at the formation again, apart from Suyu, everyone else was either bending over and vomiting, lying on the ground with weak limbs, or squatting down and holding their heads that were splitting. Suyu was the only one who could stand up with difficulty, looking like a crane among chickens. Go and rest. You have 10 days to recuperate. The green-robed, white-bearded old man smiled as he waved his hand. Suyu felt a cool breeze blowing past him. His whole body felt refreshed, and the discomfort in his soul was immediately eliminated. Looking at the rest of the people, he saw that their various symptoms were also eliminated. Suyu's pupils contracted slightly. He was able to perform a soul-healing divine technique on more than 20 people with just a wave of his hand. His soul attainments were terrifying. Thank you, Elder. Suyu cupped his hands. May I ask which expert of the Ecliptic Palace you are? The green-robed, white-bearded old man laughed. How am I an expert? You are merely a formation watcher. Suyu was secretly surprised, but he did not quite believe it. He said, Elder, you're being modest. Such a soul expert was at least in existence at the level of a 5-crown divine warrior. How could he be a nameless nobody like the formation watcher? Ouya Huanyun rubbed his head and asked curiously, Brother Su, why did you say so much to the gatekeeper? Chapter 2039. Under the guidance of the people from the Ecliptic Palace, they entered the incomparably huge city walls. The city walls were immeasurably huge. Even with Su Yu's soul perception, he could not see the end of it at all. This is a subsidiary city of the Ecliptic Temple. As participants of the Ecliptic Assembly, all of you can rest in the clear heart residence in the city for 10 days and wait for the finals to begin. After the guide finished speaking, he left by himself and left them at the city gate. This was also a test of their adaptability and could be considered one of the tests of the Ecliptic Assembly. Even the geniuses of the Ecliptic Palace had looks of awe and unfamiliarity. Although they had been nurtured by the Ecliptic Palace, it was simply too big. They had never had the chance to come to this largest subsidiary city and had always trained in remote areas. It was only recently that they had received news to head to the designated battleground to compete for the top 20. Bai Jianfei, Yi Minghua, and the others formed a group and entered the city first. Su Yu, Ouya Huanyun, Shi Jun, and Lu Ruxian formed a team and entered the city. When they entered the city for inspection, Su Yu was a little surprised to find that the ordinary soldiers guarding the city gates were all early-stage 5-crown emperors. The team leader was a mid-stage 5-crown emperor. As for the general guarding the gate, he was a peak 5-crown emperor. Su Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. Someone at the peak of 5-crown emperor realm was actually relegated to the position of a gate guard general. This was simply unimaginable outside. I once heard my father say that there are many extremely powerful emperors in the Ecliptic Palace. They are all people nurtured by the Ecliptic Palace, and they are unwilling to leave the Ecliptic Palace. They choose to take up positions and stay in the Ecliptic Palace forever. Suyu suddenly understood. Looking at the endless void, the Ecliptic Palace could be said to be the most prosperous place in the Holy Land of the Martial Path. If they wanted to develop further in the Martial Path, they naturally had a greater chance of staying in the Ecliptic Palace. Therefore, whether it was guarding the city gates or guarding the formations, they were willing to stay. Suyu was silent. Was the world in their hearts only limited to the Ecliptic Palace? He knew that he could not blame them for not having foresight. The great beginning realm was simply too vast. How difficult would it be to find another place to settle down? Like Ouya Huanyun and the others, they would most likely not be willing to set foot in a more distant place for the rest of their lives. A voice involuntarily welled up in his heart. Stay settled down in the Ecliptic Palace from now on. With the prosperity of the Ecliptic Palace, so you would also have great achievements. However, the image of Xia Jingyu and Xian flashed across his mind, and he silently extinguished this thought. His footsteps could not be stopped. In this unfamiliar city, the four of them asked around for the location of Bright Heart residence. However, for some unknown reason, no one knew that there was a Bright Heart residence in the city. No way. Is it really a test of the Ecliptic Palace? Lu Ruxian was confused. What was the point of such a test? Suyu didn't quite understand either, so he thought for a moment and said, "Let's ask him again." At the same time, Li Ruoqian and the prodigies of the Ecliptic Dao Palace were all asking around about Bright Heart residence. The answer they received was the same. They had no idea that there was a Mingxin residence in the city. Gradually, they, who had relaxed slightly, tensed up again. They realized that this might be another test. Everyone's hearts tightened, and they immediately sped up their search. They all wanted to be the first to find Mingxin residence. After asking around for an entire day without any results, Ouya Huanyun and the others were starting to get impatient. They did not know if the others had found it before them. If they fell behind, would it affect their subsequent rankings? Let's split up and search. Whoever finds it will pass on the message. Ouya Huanyun gave each of them a transportation jade charm. Suyu held the jade charm in his hand and did not continue searching. Instead, he fell into deep thought. There was no practical point in searching blindly. If Mingxin residence really existed, there should be people who knew about it. His mind was racing as he pondered carefully. After a long while, an idea came to Suyu's mind. However, he felt that it was too absurd and impossible. Let's give it a try. Suyu muttered to himself for a moment before he found an unknown inn. "Sir, do you want to stay in the inn?" Suyu said, "You can say that. However, I want to buy the inn and stay in it." Buy it and stay in it? The innkeeper was dumbfounded. "Yes, money is not a problem," Suyu said. Soon, the owner appeared and negotiated with Suyu face to face. In the end, Suyu bought the entire inn at a sky-high price of 30,000 Dao coins. At the same time, after buying it, Suyu removed the inn's signboard and changed its name to Mingxin Residence. The real Mingxin Residence shouldn't exist, Suyu thought to himself. Firstly, as the property of a branch of the Ecliptic Palace, it was used to receive the members of the Ecliptic Palace who went to various places to carry out errands. There was no need for a subsidiary city of the main palace to exist. Secondly, such a famous industry shouldn't be unknown. The only possibility was that there was no Mingxin residence. But why did the people of the Ecliptic Palace request them to search for a non-existent Mingxin residence? Hence, Suyu gave his answer. Build his own Bright Heart residence. Several days later, Ouya Huanyun and the others had practically walked through almost half of the city, but they still couldn't find a single trace of the Enlightened Heart residence. Suyu was even more certain of his guess, so he informed the three of them to come here. "Brother Su, you found a Bright Heart residence?" Ouya Huanyun stared at the simple and crude inn with astonishment in his eyes. The Bright Heart residence had always been famous for its luxury. How could it be so simple and crude? "I built it myself," Suyu replied calmly. "Self-built. Ouya Huanyun and the rest of the people were all shocked and looked at Su Yu in disbelief. How daring of him to think about it. Since he couldn't find Mingxin residence, he actually built one himself. Brother Su, you're two, Su Yu said calmly. Did you find a real Bright Heart residence? This. Ouya Huanyun and the others hesitated. A moment later, Lu Ruxian was the first to give up. She said, I can't find a Bright Heart residence no matter what. Since I can't pass the test anyway, I'm too lazy to look for it. I'll just stay here. Since she had given up, Ouya Huanyun and Shijun also lost their motivation to continue searching and settled down here. Another few days passed. A heaven ruler of the Ecliptic Palace happened to pass by and was surprised to find a Bright Heart residence. He was surprised and puzzled, and he immediately informed his companions. They entered together and asked, Is this the Bright Heart residence? Su Yu had not only bought the inn, but he had also bought the innkeeper. The innkeeper pointed at the signboard. Can't you read it yourself? His attitude of, if you like it or not, you can't stay here, actually made them believe that this was Mingxin residence. How much is it for a night? The owner said it's free. Hearing this, they were even more certain, because the person in charge of the Ecliptic Palace had said that they could stay in the Bright Heart residence for free. Their stay made more heaven rulers of the Ecliptic Palace aware of the existence of the Bright Heart residence, and they all rushed over. Although this was far from the Bright Heart residence they had imagined, they had searched so hard for it to no avail. Now that they had found it, what else could they do? In the end, the 20 people who entered the city arrived at the Bright Heart residence. In one of the guest rooms, Su Yu, Ouya Huanyun, and Shijun exchanged pointers in the Ecliptic Palace again. Well, in the following ranking competition, only Brother O Yi can enter the top 100 and become a member of the Middle Palace. Others like me can only enter the Lower Palace, Lu Ruxian said with envy and jealousy. Shijun nodded slightly and said, If one day Brother O Yi becomes the person in charge of the Branch Palace, don't forget about us. Ouya Huanyun shook his head and chuckled. Even I was kicked out of the top 100 of the Ecliptic list by that Yu Xian, let alone the Ecliptic meeting. Many heaven rulers outside of the Ecliptic list may appear. I'll be grateful if I can enter the top 150. Lu Ruxian covered her mouth and chuckled. Brother O Yi, you're too modest. How can there be so many hidden heaven rulers? Ouya Huanyun just chuckled and looked at Su Yu, who was silent. He asked, Brother Su, what ranking do you plan to compete for? Top 10, Su Yu said. Only the top 10 would get a Bodhi fruit. Top 10. Ouya Huanyun was startled, and Lu Ruxian's face was full of surprise. She then burst into laughter. Brother Su Yu, you're really humorous. Shijun also shook his head in amusement. Brother Su, you look so serious. I almost believed you. Su Yu smiled and said nothing. Right at that moment, the shopkeeper knocked on the door and said, Boss, the food is ready. All right. He looked at the other 3 people. Let's go. The ingredients of the Ecliptic Palace were quite special. Many of them contained a shred of the Path Master's comprehension. They couldn't taste such ingredients anywhere else. Therefore, they had been eating such ingredients for the past few days. The 4 of them left the room. As soon as they came out, they ran into Li Ruochen in the corridor. He was alone and had a satisfied look on his face. When he saw Su Yu, he couldn't help but laugh. Oh, you're really lucky to have found this place. Hearing this, Ouya Huanyun and the other 2 looked at each other in dismay. This place was built by Su Yu. Su Yu's face was calm. Oh, do you have any advice for me? Li Ruochen looked at Lu Ruxian, who was standing next to Su Yu, and looked slightly displeased. I don't have any advice for you. I'm just reminding you on behalf of Yin Zhantian. Speak. You're indebted to the 4-symbol mansion, and you've relied on their recommendation letter to get to where you are now. You must keep this in mind, understand? Li Ruochen sounded like he was lecturing Su Yu. His motive was obvious. He wanted to belittle Su Yu in front of Lu Ruxian. He wanted to let her know that Su Yu, whom she had taken a fancy to, was someone who didn't even qualify to participate in the Ecliptic Palace meet. Su Yu's face was calm, and he didn't say anything. Without the 4-symbol mansion's charity, you wouldn't be where you are now. I hope that, no matter what ranking you get, you'll go back and repay their kindness, Li Ruochen said. This is the basic principle of being a human. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Su Yu calmly. Are you from the Four-Symbol Mansion? No, but what does that have to do with you? Do I need you to say anything? Su Yu's eyes were cold. Li Ruochen shook his head. I'm teaching you how to be a human, but you won't listen. Su Yu said calmly. Fine, then I'll teach you how to be a human. He didn't say a word, but took out a recommendation letter. It was the letter that Yin Qinshuang had given him, and it had the Four-Symbol Mansion seal on it. Chapter 2040. Li Ruochen looked at the recommendation letter, his face full of shock. You're useless? Then how did you participate in the Ecliptic Assembly? When they disembarked from the palace ship, everyone's invitation and recommendation letters had been taken away and handed over to the Ecliptic Palace. So you could not possibly keep them. I never used the Four-Symbol Mansion's recommendation letter, nor did I accept their charity. Instead, they owed me a favor for no reason, Su Yu said calmly. Now, do you still have any morals to teach me? Li Ruochen came back to his senses, his face alternating between green and red as he stared at Su Yu with hostility. Seeing that he was about to fly into a rage out of humiliation, Ouya Huanyin shook his head. Li Ruochen's narrow-mindedness was beyond praise. Lu Ruxian frowned and said, with brother Su Yu's abilities, who would be willing to give him a recommendation letter? Many people would be willing to recommend him to participate in the Ecliptic Assembly. If Su Yu did not have a recommendation letter, she would have been willing to give him one unconditionally. Such an outstanding person did not need charity from others. She was quite dissatisfied with Li Ruochen. She had thought that he was a good person, talented, and gentle. But now, she realized that his character was problematic. Su Yu had never provoked him, yet he had inexplicably stepped forward to belittle him. Failing to belittle him, he had flown into a rage out of humiliation. She rejoiced that she had not accepted his advances in the past. Li Ruochen did not care about how others viewed him, but Lu Ruxian's attitude made him look at Su Yu even more unfriendly. He coldly threw away the recommendation letter and said, I really do not want to be under the same roof as someone like you who relies on luck and women. Staying even a moment longer will only affect my mood. Lu Ruxian laughed angrily. How could someone like Li Ruochen have the cheek to criticize Su Yu? She coldly said, Then you can leave. Is there anyone who wants you to stay? Li Ruochen clasped his hands behind his back and smiled proudly. Mingxin residence does not belong to you. It is not up to you to decide whether I stay or go. Ouya Huanyun and Shi Jun were slightly stunned, looking at Su Yu with strange expressions. Shi Jun coughed lightly and said, Perhaps the three of us don't have the qualifications to decide your fate, but Brother Su can. I advise you to be careful when you speak. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll have to look for another place to stay. Li Ruochen sneered and shook his head. I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't know what you were talking about. No matter how good Su Yu's bearing was, he couldn't withstand this person's constant provocation. So, he calmly said, Then I'll let you understand. Shopkeeper, please send our guest out. The innkeeper who led the way nodded and made an inviting gesture towards Li Ruochen. Young master, please leave. Mingxin residence does not welcome you. Li Ruochen was startled. He pointed at Su Yu and said indignantly, Are you crazy? He asked me to leave, and you really want me to leave? I'm the heir of a half-past civilization. Who does he think he is? The shopkeeper was not afraid of Li Ruochen, especially at the foot of the Ecliptic Palace. No one dared to act recklessly. His face twitched slightly. Young master, you must be joking. It doesn't matter who you are. What's important is that young Master Su is the owner of Mingxin residence. If he wants you to leave, then I can only let you leave. Hearing that, Li Ruochen was startled once more, and his mind was filled with disbelief. Boss, Brightheart residence is the property of the Ecliptic Palace Hall. What does it have to do with the surnamed Su? Li Ruochen said. The shopkeeper's expression was indifferent. Young master, if you still don't leave, I'll have to invite the Imperial Guards of the Ecliptic Palace here. Li Ruochen's heart was filled with doubts, and he was suppressing a pent-up anger in his chest. He looked fiercely at Su Yu, then at Ouya, Huanyun, and the others and said, "Fine, I'll leave, but let's wait and see." He had been chased out of Bright Heart residence, and he had lost all face. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. What right did Su Yu have to control the property of the Ecliptic Palace? As he pondered, he sensed that there seemed to be a problem. Hence, he stayed near Bright Heart residence and inquired about it from the surrounding shops. Only then did he find out that a few days ago, it was merely an ordinary inn that was about to close down. It had only been bought by Su Yu and transformed into Bright Heart residence. Knowing this, Li Ruochen was both angry and furious. No wonder. However, as he thought about it, a meaningful smile appeared on his face. He's really courting death. He actually dared to build a fake Bright Heart residence and deceive the other participants of the Ecliptic Palace meeting. He strolled away and arrived at the Ecliptic Palace office in his district. The city was too huge, and, geographically, it was divided into 10 great districts. Every district had an office set up by the Ecliptic Palace, overseen by the experts of the Ecliptic Palace, who handled the various administrative matters in the city. "Who are you?" The guards of the office were all 5 crown emperors, and they shouted softly. Li Ruochen cupped his fists respectfully and bowed. "I discovered an important matter, and I want to report it to the Ecliptic Palace. This matter concerns the reputation of the Ecliptic Palace, so I had no choice but to come." Since it concerned the reputation of the Ecliptic Palace, the 2 guards did not dare to be careless. They said, "Come with me to see Lord Zhang." Zhang Weining was the overall person in charge of this district, and while he was busy, the guard brought Li Ruochen inside. "Lord, this person says he has an important matter to report to you." Zhang Weining raised his head to look at Li Ruochen and nodded calmly. "Speak." He did not even ask who Li Ruochen was. A genius like him might be prominent in a half-path civilization, but he was incomparably mediocre in the Ecliptic Palace. Li Ruochen suddenly felt boundless pressure. He had only felt such a feeling from an ancestor at the half-step Daolord realm. "Lord Zhang, I discovered that someone forged the Mingxin residence to deceive the Ecliptic Palace's participants who were unaware of the situation. He had ulterior motives, and I hope that Lord Zhang will investigate and deal with this matter." Zhang Weining was startled, and he asked, "Where? Who did it?" Li Ruochen was delighted, as he knew that this matter had attracted the attention of the local person in charge. He said, "It's a person called Su Yu, and he's at West 3rd Street's area number 109. Hearing this, Zhang Weining nodded solemnly, and he looked at Li Ruochen meaningfully. You've done a meritorious deed by reporting this matter. What reward do you want?" Li Ruochen said, "I just want to do something for the Ecliptic Palace, and I have no intention of asking for a reward." Zhang Weining nodded. Then what's your name?" "Li Ruochen." He was slightly expectant. Since the other party had asked for his name, there must be a follow-up plan. "Li Ruochen, right? Fine, I'll remember this. I'll report this matter to the higher-ups of the Ecliptic Palace." Hearing this, Li Ruochen was overjoyed. Such a trifling matter was actually known by the higher-ups of the Ecliptic Palace. If his name fell into the ears of the higher-ups of the Ecliptic Palace, it would greatly affect their future development prospects. He really did not expect that reporting Su Yu would result in him receiving such a good reward. "Thank you, Lord Zhang." Li Ruochen cupped his fists. When he saw that the other party did not speak further, he tactfully retreated. "I'll take my leave." After he left, Zhang Weining immediately said to the guard, "Go and verify the situation." Chapter 2041. The Bright Heart residence was indeed a test. Moreover, the top 20 of different battle zones all had different types of tests. The test of this region was to stay in a non-existent Bright Heart residence. Whoever could find another way to solve the problem would pass the test. At the moment, Su Yu was the only one. As for Li Ruochen, who reported him, Zhang Weining shook his head. This is the difference between an idiot and a smart person. A few days later, many of the geniuses at the meeting ended their 10-day wait anxiously. Until today, no results of the so-called test had been announced. Could it be that we are thinking too much? By Jinfei, Yiming Hua and the rest left Clear Heart residence and headed towards the main hall. He turned his head to look at Mingxin residents behind him, feeling slightly puzzled. Yiming Hua's eyes shone with wisdom as he shook his head slightly. It shouldn't be. The Ecliptic Palace's way of doing things has always been methodical and would definitely not be baseless. It should be that we have misunderstood something. Bai Jianfei thought for a moment and said, "Forget it. Since there are no adverse effects, it's not worth paying attention to." That's true. Yiming Hua didn't think any further and headed towards the main hall with them. Su Yu, Ouya Huanyun, and the others also set off to the center of the city. This was the arena built by the Ecliptic Palace. It was specially set up for martial artists to compete with each other. It could accommodate thousands of matches at the same time. It was extremely spectacular. When Su Yu and the others arrived, the arena was packed with people. They were all people from the Ecliptic Palace who had come to watch the fight. The Ecliptic Assembly that happened once every 100 years was not something that could be seen at any time. This grand event could be said to be a clash between the younger generation of all the civilizations within the jurisdiction of the Ecliptic Temple. It was the highest standard martial arts grand event, so it naturally attracted countless spectators. At the same time, there were several meticulous martial arts experts sitting on the high platform. There were a total of 11 chairs, and 10 of them were occupied by the people in charge of the 10 areas of the city. Every single one of them was a half-step Tao Lord. The chair in the middle was empty. I heard that the heaven-crippling Tao Master will personally host this ecliptic Tao meet. I wonder if it's true. It shouldn't be fake. The ecliptic Tao meetings have always been hosted by the various Tao Lords in the ecliptic Tao Hall. It's not strange that it's heaven-crippling Tao Lord's turn. The problem is, I heard that the heaven-shattered Tao Lord has already arrived at the critical moment of his death. Could it be that he still has the mood to preside over the ecliptic meeting at this moment? Shouldn't you be thinking of ways to improve your cultivation? Even a Tao Lord's lifespan would come to an end. The heaven-crippling Tao Master was a veteran Tao Master. He had great influence in the ecliptic Tao Hall and was far more influential than the newer Tao Masters. However, 100 years ago, heaven-crippling Tao Master suddenly had a dream. A game of chess appeared in his dream. As a pawn, he was eaten by a horse. After waking up from the dream, he sighed and announced his dream. Immediately, everyone in the ecliptic Tao Temple, from the temple master to the warriors, sank into silence. The Taoist master dreamt that he had become a chess piece on the chessboard and was eaten by his opponent's chess piece. This was the omen of one's death. Even a Tao Lord would never know where his lifespan would end. Only such a dream could confirm it. No one knew why a Tao Master would dream of becoming a chess piece before his lifespan ended. But since the ancient times until now, every single Tao Lord who had died of old age had died like this without any exception. At this moment, suddenly, a huge spatial vortex appeared on the middle chair. An old man shrouded in layers of spatial energy stepped out of the vortex and sat calmly on a chair. The people in charge of the area on both sides stood up and saluted him respectfully. Heaven-crippling Tao Master. The audience was even more excited. The heaven-crippling Tao Master has appeared. I can't believe he really showed up. Isn't he worried about his death? However, the heaven-crippling Tao Master's face was calm and emotionless. Su Yu stared at the heaven-crippling Tao Master with a hint of surprise in his eyes. He was surprised not because he had mastered part of the law of space, but because he had seen this person before. He was the sole expert who guarded the transportation portal when he was transported to this city. Su Yu had long felt that this person's soul attainments were quite terrifying. He thought that this person should not be an ordinary person. Unexpectedly, he was in existence at the level of a Tao Master. The heaven-crippling Tao Master seemed to have sensed Su Yu's gaze. He looked at Su Yu with a smile. At this moment, he was the focus of everyone's attention. Even the slightest movement could not escape the eyes of the people present. Oh my God, who did the heaven-crippling Tao Master smile at? Could it be that he knows someone among the participants this time? But the heaven-crippling Tao Master has no relatives or friends. He doesn't even have a disciple. Among the participants now, he should not know anyone from the younger generation, right? His inadvertent movement caused everyone to speculate. Ouya Huanyun, Lu Ruxian, Shi Jun, and the others who had seen the heaven-crippling Dao Master before were so shocked that they could not close their mouths. A dignified Dao Master was actually guarding the transportation portal personally. They were even fortunate enough to be treated by the Dao Master. With surprise and doubt in their hearts, they walked into the arena together. There were a total of 200 people, and most of them were geniuses cultivated by the Ecliptic Palace. Even Bai Jianfei and the others felt great pressure at this moment. Those who competed on the same arena would include those demon-level peerless geniuses. They were not sure whether they would be able to enter the Middle Palace. The heaven-crippling Dao Master pressed his hand down. Everyone suddenly felt an inexplicable pressure that made them unable to open their mouths. The audience instantly fell silent. The ranking competition of the Ecliptic Palace meeting this time is divided into 2 stages. The first stage is the competition in the arena, and the second stage is the competition for opportunities. Hearing this, everyone present was surprised. The participants were also deeply surprised. In the past, the finals of the Ecliptic Palace meeting were just competition in the arena. At most, the format of the competition was different. The competition for opportunities this time was unheard of. On the other hand, Ouya Huanyun and the others were also puzzled. It seemed like the information they obtained wasn't reliable. The competition will be divided into the East, South, West, and North areas. Every area will have a judge, and they will evaluate your overall strength. In the end, he will choose 10 people from among you to enter the second stage, the competition for opportunities. So, in the first stage, all of you must fight with all your strength. You must determine the winner within 10 moves so that the judge doesn't make a wrong judgment. In the past competitions, many participants would conceal their strength in order to deceive others, and they would only reveal it at the end. But it was impossible now, because if they didn't reveal an obvious advantage within 10 moves, it was very likely that they would be wrongly judged as the loser by the judge. In that case, the loss outweighed the gain. So, the following competition would probably be extremely intense right from start. East Judge, enter the arena. As soon as he finished speaking, an ancient sword tore through the sky, and a woman in white stood ramrod straight on it. Her expression was cold and solemn, like an iceberg, and she kept everyone at a distance. Her appearance was exquisite, and her figure was graceful and beautiful. Coupled with her cold temperament, she seemed extremely cold and oppressive. Luotian of the East. Exclamations instantly sounded out. The prodigies of the Ecliptic Palace were scattered and nurtured in various places. Among them, 4 great areas had each nurtured monstrous prodigies. Among them, the most renowned prodigy in the East was Luotian, who was both beautiful and talented. Her swordsmanship that she inherited from the Dao Master was superb, and coupled with her cultivation as a late-stage 4-crown monarch, her overall strength was rather terrifying. Chapter 2042. She stepped on the ancient sword and landed gracefully. Then, she held the ancient sword in her slender hand and waved it at the 200 contestants present. A gentle sword energy separated the 50 people, including Su Yu, to one side. A pair of cold eyes did not look at them. She said, "You will be divided into the eastern region." Su Yu nodded slightly. Her swordsmanship was not bad. She was able to separate the people present without hurting anyone. It was obvious that her swordsmanship was superb. The rumors about her were not false. Haha, Luotian came first. Don't take all the good seedlings first. A loud voice came from the west. A cloud emitting a rich Buddha's light floated over slowly. On the cloud, a young monk in a kasaya was lying on his back. He held a greasy pig trotter in one hand and a pot of wine in the other. He was eating meat and wine at the same time. He looked very different from the image of a monk. "He's here. It's the West Region Wine and Meat Buddha." The crowd burst into an uproar. The West Region's peerless genius, Wine and Meat Buddha, cultivated the Buddhist path and also received the legacy of a Buddhist path master. He was unrestrained and unrestrained. He liked wine and meat the most. He was known as the Wine and Meat Buddha. His strength was a mystery. He had never competed in public, but he was named the West Region's #1 by the Ecliptic Palace. Wine and Meat Buddha looked at the remaining 150 people and sprinkled 50 drops of wine on the bodies of 50 people. Haha, you are all fated to meet me. You can come to the West Region. What was annoying was that Wine and Meat Buddha seemed to have chosen randomly, but the people who were chosen were all women. Moreover, all the good-looking women were chosen. Lu Ruxian was one of them. Suyu's mouth twitched slightly. It was just as the rumors said. Nothing was taboo. Seeing this, Luotian looked at him disdainfully. You won't change. Wine and Meat Buddha laughed. Luotian knows me well. You are indeed my confidant. Clang. A wisp of sharp, sword energy brushed past Jiuro. Luotian calmly put away her sword. Her eyes were cold. If you still want to eat wine and eat meat, shut your mouth immediately. Wine and Meat Buddha didn't panic at all. Instead, he smiled mischievously. Suddenly, he looked to the south and muttered, Tiska, the demon emperor of the southern region is here. I can smell his killing intent from far away. Hee. As expected, a large patch of bloody light suddenly descended from the southern sky. A young man whose hair was covered in blood walked over with his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were cold and filled with contempt for the common people. He glanced at Luotian and Buddha Jiuro. With a wave of his sleeves, a wave of blood split the remaining 100 people into two. The one on the left, follow me. The 50 people who were chosen revealed looks of excitement, because it was said that the Southern Goblin King's strength was already comparable to a 5-crown early-stage emperor. According to the rumors, he was stronger than Luotian of the Eastern region and Wine Meat Buddha of the Western region. If he could be chosen and enter the second stage, he would definitely have an advantage. However, the remaining 50 people were even happier, because they would be following the last and most powerful heaven's favorite of the 4 regions, Yin Shun of the North. Just as he finished speaking, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the 50 people like a ghost. There was not the slightest breath on his body, and he appeared without warning, like a ghost. Suyu glanced over and was surprised. The young man in front of him was actually his soul body. Yin Shun of the North. Legend has it that the most powerful heaven's favorite of the current generation of the Ecliptic Palace has reached the early stage of the 5-crown emperor. The heaven's favorites of the other 3 regions are on a completely different level compared to him. His appearance caused a stir in the audience, including the 3 arrogant heaven's favorites. They all looked at Yin Shun of the North, their eyes filled with fighting spirit, seeing him as the strongest opponent. You guys follow me. Yin Shun looked back at the last 50 people, his face revealing a calm smile. Just like that, the division of the 4 major battle areas was completed. Luotian looked at Su Yu and the others indifferently and said, Follow me. In fact, the heaven's favorites of the 4 regions were participants of this year's Ecliptic Assembly, just like them. However, not only did they not need to go through the difficult battles like them, but they could also become the judges that decided their fate. It had to be said that the gap between them was huge. Under his lead, Su Yu and the other 50 people came to a corner of the battle arena. With a sweep of Luotian's ancient sword, the sword energy outlined an aura on the spot, isolating them from the outside world. Those whose names are called, come in and fight. Luotian entered the sword energy field first. Suyu frowned slightly. Sparring should be open and above board. So why did she choose to do it in a sealed environment? If she was unfair, who would supervise? Bai Jianfei, Li Donglai. The 2 whose names were called immediately entered the sword energy field. Not long after, the 2 came out with nervous expressions. Yi Minghua, Zhang Songyun. Similarly, after entering and coming out, they also looked uneasy. Li Ruochen, Jiang Xin. Finally, it was Su Yu's turn. Shijun, Su Yu. Hearing this, Shijun's expression was slightly unnatural. He cupped his fist towards Su Yu and sighed. Brother Su, thank you for your guidance along the way, but the Ecliptic Assembly concerns the rating of our Tianji civilization. I had no choice. His impression of Su Yu's strength was still at Uya Huanyun's evaluation, thinking that he was at most a peak early stage for Crown Emperor. I understand. Go all out. Don't worry about me, Su Yu said. Jun was ashamed. I'm sorry. The two entered the sword energy field, only to see Luotian standing there leisurely. She said, let's start sparring. It's best if we can decide the victor within 10 moves. My time is limited. Her tone was cold, as if she was looking down on them. Suyu was unconcerned, making a gesture of invitation toward Jun. Jun said, Brother Su, I really don't want to fight you. Why don't you just admit defeat? Suyu smiled. How would I know if I don't try? Seeing Suyu so insistent, Jun could only say, Brother Su, be careful. If you feel that you can't take it, admit defeat immediately to avoid harming you. After saying this, his body surged with desolation power, and a level 5 chain of rules appeared in his hands. He displayed his full strength because he was not only facing Suyu, but also Luotian. Luotian would rank them based on his attacks. If he could not enter the top 10 in her mind, he would not be able to participate in the second stage of the Ecliptic Assembly. Take this. Jun immediately attacked. With Suyu's guidance, many of his flaws had been corrected. Luotian looked on from the side, nodding slightly. She commented, Your foundation is slightly flawed, but you are stronger than most people. Not bad. She looked at Suyu again, only to see that he was calmly releasing the desolation power of an early stage for Crown Emperor and taking out a blood-red sword. Oh, is this also sword technique? As a fellow sword cultivator, Luotian observed curiously. Chapter 2043. Demon Sword Technique, Bury the Heavens. Suyu waved his sword casually. As soon as the sword appeared, Luotian's eyes lit up and she nodded. Not bad. Whoosh. The powerful sword technique swept out, its power comparable to that of a peak middle stage 4-crown martial artist. Jun was caught off guard, and his expression changed. How did your sword technique? Before he could finish his sentence, Luotian said calmly, The winner has been decided. Suyu is better. Jun withdrew his chain, his face full of shock and disbelief. How could this be? The power of that sword was far beyond Ouya Huanyun's at his peak. But wasn't Suyu just a peak early stage 4-crown martial artist? He couldn't figure it out, and he smiled bitterly. Brother Su, it turns out that you have hidden your strength well. I was too rash to say such arrogant words. Recalling how he had asked Suyu to admit defeat, he couldn't help but feel his face burn. Suyu smiled lightly and said, Don't be discouraged. The final ranking is not yet here. After saying that, he looked at Luotian and cupped his fists. Now that the sparring is over, we will take our leave. Wait. Luotian looked at Suyu thoughtfully. Let me ask you a question. If you enter the second stage, will you obey me? Suyu pondered for a moment. No wonder everyone who left the sword energy field was so preoccupied. There was something fishy about it. After a moment of silence, Suyu asked, What kind of obedience? Can you give me an example? Luotian's eyes darkened. For example, you will have to hand over 1/10 of the creation tokens you obtain in the second stage to me. Hearing this, Suyu thought to himself, the creation tokens must be very important in the second stage. He thought for a moment and said, If I don't agree, will I not be able to enter the second stage? Luotian leaned back and her eyes turned cold. She said indifferently, I won't. I have always been fair. After saying that, she waved her hand, signaling for Suyu and the others to leave. Suyu's eyes flashed, and he left silently. Watching him leave, Luotian's eyes flashed with a hint of contempt. You don't know what's good for you. The sparring in the 4 regions continued. After 2 hours, the sparring was almost over. The heaven rulers of the 4 regions gathered in the center of the arena. The crippled Heaven Dao Master said, All of you, report your choices. The first to choose was Yin Shun of the northern region. The people he chose were all top-notch experts who were ranked at the top of the ecliptic list. Among them was the genius ranked 5th on the ecliptic rankings, Ecliptic Daozong, whose strength was second only to them. Next was the Demon King of the South, who was also the best. Western region's Buddha of wine and meat didn't need to be mentioned. He only chose outstanding women. Unfortunately, Lu Ruxian wasn't chosen. His strength was at the bottom of the 50 people, and he was still far from being in the top 10. the heaven ruler Luotian. She stepped forward and said, "The list of people I have chosen is as follows." "You," she said, "ruler." He was king. He was ranked 6th on. 2nd, Zhao Tianyun. 3rd, Huang Ji. Huang. 9th, Li Ruochen. 10th place, Uya Huanyun. Hearing this, Suyu remained calm and collected. However, Shi Jun was astonished on the spot. He had seen Suyu's power with his own eyes, and he knew that Suyu's power was far above Uya Huanyun's. Those two people were able to join her, but Suyu wasn't chosen. The result was unfair. According to the rules of the meet, the 10 strongest people should be selected. However, Luotian didn't choose according to the rules. The Heaven Destroyer, sect master nodded. The first stage of his sparring is over. The rest of you can take a break. He meant that the Heaven Destroyer meet would end here. Shi Jun gritted his teeth. It was unfair. He didn't make it to the top 10. But Suyu, recalling Suyu's kindness and giving him pointers, Shi Jun mustered his courage and said, "Path Master, I believe that the Eastern region selection is unfair. I hope that you can look into it." As soon as he said that, everyone's attention was drawn to him. The Heaven Destroyer sect master looked at him and asked, "What's unfair about it?" Being stared at by the Path Master, Shi Jun felt immense pressure. He said, "It is not unfair to me, but it is unfair to Suyu. With his strength, it's impossible for him to be in the top 10. Hearing this, everyone's gazes fell on the young man beside him who hadn't said a word. Not in the top 10 meant that his strength was higher than Uya Huanyun's. The Heaven Destroyer sect master looked at Luotian and said, "Are you ranked according to your strength?" Luotian replied calmly, "Yes." "Then, Suyu's elimination is unfair. Don't you think so?" Luotian looked calm. She seemed prepared. "I don't think it's unfair. His strength is passable, but there's still a gap between him and the top 10. Shi Jun shook his head and said, "Suyu only used one sword strike. However, even I could tell that the power of that sword strike was at the level of a 4-crown middle stage martial emperor. How could the dignified Luotian of the East not be able to tell?" Luotian didn't look at him. She said calmly, "I have my own evaluation of his strength. It's not up to irrelevant people to spread rumors." Shi Jun was furious. "You're accusing me of spreading rumors? I'm afraid Suyu didn't agree to give you a 10th of the creation medallion, so he was eliminated." Luotian glanced at him, her eyes cold. "If you don't have any evidence, I can kill you right now just because of this slander." Shi Jun wanted to say something but stopped. He didn't have any evidence, and he didn't want to leave any. He never thought that Luotian of the East could be so despicable. He hated that he was from a foreign civilization and was unfamiliar with the Yellow Palace. There was no one who could uphold justice for them. It was probably because of this that Luotian dared to humiliate others so unscrupulously. Luotian looked at the Heaven Destroyer sect master and said respectfully, "My lord, I didn't abuse my power for personal gain. Please understand." The Heaven Destroyer sect master looked at Shi Jun and asked, "You don't have any evidence?" Shi Jun shook his head. After a moment of silence, the Heaven Destroyer sect master looked at Suyu and was about to announce something. Suddenly, Zhang Weining, one of the people in charge of the 10 cities, stood up and came to the sect master. He whispered something to him. The Heaven Destroyer sect master looked at Suyu again. After a while, he asked Suyu, "Do you think you can enter the top 10 with your strength?" This question left Luotian inwardly shocked. Why would the sect master ask Suyu? It didn't make sense. What did Zhang Weining say to the Heaven Destroyer sect master? Why did the sect master act like this? The gazes of everyone present turned to look at Suyu. His expression was calm as he said, "Yes." Chapter 2044. Luotian raised her brows slightly. She could feel that the Tianqin Pathmaster was intentionally helping Suyu. If he really displayed the ability to enter the top 10, then she would be able to confirm Shi Jun's report. However, since the heavenly crippling down master had personally spoken, she did not dare to refute and could only ponder in silence. Things were slightly out of his expectations, but everything was under control. If you want to prove that you have the ability to enter the top 10 in the Eastern region, you must at least defeat the person ranked 10th, said the crippled Heaven Down Master slowly. Everyone nodded. Actually, it was not enough to just defeat the 10th place. This was because if he narrowly defeated the 10th ranker, it could only be said that there was not much of a difference in strength between the two. It was normal for Luo Shen to make an error in judgment. Of course, you can choose to challenge someone with a higher ranking, added the Heaven Crippling Down Master. Suyu raised his eyes and looked at the 10 people who had been recognized by Luo Shen. His gaze swept past Ouya Huanyun, who was ranked 10th. At this moment, Ouya Huanyun was looking at him with a puzzled expression. The scene before him was completely out of his expectations. Sure Jun was actually speaking up for Suyu. With Suyu's true abilities, he could not even be compared to Sure Jun. What was so unfair about it? He said, "Brother Su, if you want to challenge me, I can accompany you. It just so happens that I wasn't able to spar with you at that time, so it's good to spar with you at the Ecliptic Association today." Suyu smiled and shook his head. His gaze went past him and landed on Li Ruochen, who was in the 9th place. At this moment, Li Ruochen was sizing him up with a puzzled expression. It was strange. He had reported Suyu for building the Mingxin residence with malicious intentions. However, not only was Suyu safe and sound, but he was also protected by the Tianquan sect master. However, when he noticed that Suyu was staring at him, he could not help but reveal a sinister look. "I advise you to be down to earth. The outcome of biting off more than you can chew is never good. Since you do not have the fate of being in the top 10, you should have just obediently allowed yourself to be eliminated. Why did you have to jump out? I'll choose you," Suyu said calmly. Hearing this, Li Ruochen laughed in anger. He really dared to challenge him. Soon after, a trace of coldness flashed across his face. "That's fine. I've always wanted to give you some pointers. Alas, you always like to hide behind others." Taking a step forward, Li Ruochen placed his hand behind his back and said, "I'll give you 3 moves. If you touch my sleeve, consider it my loss." His tone was very arrogant, but in the ears of the onlookers, it was only natural. Someone ranked within 80 on the ecliptic list does indeed have the qualifications to say such words. That person called Su Yu has chosen someone he shouldn't have chosen. However, if he could even defeat Li Ruochen, it would mean that Su Yu has absolute abilities. The Heaven Crippling Down Master said indifferently, "Prepare for battle." Su Yu nodded and walked to the center of the arena. The Azura sword appeared in his hand. As Ouya Huanyan stared at Su Yu's sword, he found it quite familiar. He then exclaimed in surprise, "That's strange. Didn't Brother Su cultivate his physique? Could it be that he also knew how to use a sword? I've never heard him mention it before." He thought to himself, sword techniques should be Su Yu's secondary cultivation, right? His chances of winning this battle are very slim, even if Li Ruochen gives him 3 moves. The two of them stood in the middle of the arena. Li Ruochen placed his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "Make your move. Remember, I'll only allow you 3 moves." So he did not say a word. His gaze gradually became sharp, and he suddenly waved the Azura sword in his hand. "Bury the heavens." With a swing of the sword, it was as though the heavens and earth were collapsing. An endless amount of terrifying sword chi rushed over. Everyone in the audience was shocked. What exquisite swordsmanship! Even a peak mid-stage for Crown Emperor would be killed by 1 sword. Strange. The might of this sword, even Yi Minghua, who is ranked 5th in the Eastern region, is inferior to it. Luo Shen actually eliminated him. What's so strange about that? Didn't you hear what Shijun said? She failed to get the token of creation, so she eliminated Su Yu out of malice. Is there such a thing? I never thought that Goddess Luo would be such a despicable person despite her cold and elegant appearance. Hee, you can't judge a book by its cover. There had been some rumors about her since a long time ago, but due to her fame and beauty, no one had dared to speak of her. No one wants to believe it. Below the stage, everyone was discussing with a calm expression. However, Li Ruochen's proud face was instantly replaced by fear and astonishment. The power of this sword was not something that someone at his level could contend with. In a panic, He put down his hands that were behind his back and condensed a shield with the power of desolation. At the same time, he hurriedly used the chain of rules to resist it. Crack! The chain of rules was bombarded by the swift and fierce sword energy, and the power of desolation on the surface of his body was instantly destroyed. Poof! The sword energy entered his body, and his body was directly torn apart. Only his soul escaped. Everything happened so quickly that no one had time to stop it. Or those who had the ability to stop it just stood by and watched. For example, the Tianqian Pathmaster and the other 10 people on the high platform. Zhang Weining, in particular, looked at Li Ruochen's shattered body calmly, but he had no intention of stopping it. His eyes were full of contempt. He and the Tianqian Pathmaster did not help him as a punishment for reporting Su Yu. Li Ruochen had suffered the consequences of his own actions. If he had not insidiously reported Su Yu and left a bad impression on Zhang Weining and the Tianqian Pathmaster, they would definitely have helped him. As his body was shattered, Li Ruochen's soul roared in grief and anger. Su Yu, how dare you destroy my body? Although he could be reborn from a single drop of blood, his cultivation would be greatly reduced. Not to mention that he would not be able to continue participating in the Ecliptic Assembly. It was uncertain whether he could cultivate back to his current cultivation in the future. His identity as the heir of the civilization might even be taken away. His entire life would be ruined. So he was slightly startled. He did not expect that no one would help him. In such an occasion, it should have been the people of the Ecliptic Palace who helped him. However, Su Yu did not have any psychological burden. If Li Ruochen had not been so conceited and had been a little more serious, he would not have been so defenseless that his body would have been destroyed. Looking at his soul, Su Yu pointed the Azura sword at him from afar. This is only one move. You said you would let me have 3 moves. There are still 2 moves left. Hearing this, Li Ruochen was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly fled and screamed, "Save me!" As he screamed, he fled the arena in a panic. Lu Ruxian looked at him and shook her head. What a disgrace. She was very glad that she had not accepted this person's pursuit. Otherwise, she would have been disgraced as well. Wow. I wonder how Luotian is going to deal with this. Haha, you are thinking too much. Luotian is one of the top heaven rulers of the 4 regions. Will he be punished for such a trivial matter? The Tianqian Pathmaster looked at Luotian at this moment. Do you have anything to say? Luotian's face was indifferent as she said, It was my negligence. I beg for forgiveness. About apologizing, let's talk about it after the Ecliptic Assembly. As expected, even the Tianqian Pathmaster decided to turn a big problem into a small one and help him cover it up. Now, you're short of one person. Choose another one. His intention was obvious. He wanted Su Yu to join him. Luotian looked at Su Yu and said calmly, Your strength is not bad. Follow me. Chapter 2045. If one looked closely, they would see a faint trace of coldness in her eyes. If Su Yu joined her, it would be easy for her to embarrass him in the fight for the good fortune. However, Su Yu said calmly, Supremacy, can I choose another option? Luotian was stunned and her face stiffened. Was he trying to embarrass her in public? The people from her own region didn't want to join her. Was it because he knew she wouldn't have a good time? The Tianqian sect master asked why. Su Yu said, Because I don't think Luotian is strong enough to lead me. What? Everyone was shocked once again, as they had never expected Su Yu to utter such arrogant words. Did I misunderstand him? Does he look down on Luotian's strength? I guess that's what he meant. The 10 people in charge of the regions on the high platform were surprised. Su Yu's tone was a little too arrogant. How dare he question the strength of Luotian of the East region? Luotian said calmly, You are a frog at the bottom of a well. With Su Yu's strength, how could he know the meaning of Luotian of the East region? The Tianqian sect master looked at Su Yu and said, Do you want to join the other 3 regions? No. Su Yu shook his head. I want to act alone. Anyone who joined him would be restricted, so it was more convenient to go alone. The Tianqian sect master was a little surprised and said, Maybe you don't understand. The second stage is to enter the creation realm, which is full of dangers. You must be led by someone who is much stronger than ordinary people. It's very dangerous for you to go alone. Suyu didn't like to be high profile, but he wouldn't flinch when he had to fight for it. I don't think I'm weaker than them, so I can protect myself. The Tiancan sect master was a little curious and said with a smile, "Interesting. So, who among the four regions doesn't want to accept this?" The people of the four regions didn't say a word and looked indifferent. They didn't want to accept Suyu's strength, but they didn't want to test Suyu's strength. Who were they? Usually, there weren't many people in the same generation as them who deserved to fight. Now that they were asked to test a person of the same generation, they felt it was beneath their dignity. Seeing that no one agreed, the Tiancan sect master looked at Luoshin and said, "Since he is from your region, you can test his strength." Luoshin frowned. She was extremely unwilling. However, he had no choice but to obey the Daelord's orders. With a trace of disgust, she stepped forward. "Make your move." She silently took out her ancient sword. This was a sword that came from the Ecliptic Palace. It was an imitation of the Mulberry Sword, one of the 9 great ancient swords of the Ecliptic Palace. Its might was extraordinary. Coupled with Luo Shun's own swordsmanship and cultivation, she could completely rival an early-stage 5-crown emperor. Suyu held the Azura sword in his hand and took a deep breath. His whole body gradually released a sharp aura. The Shura sect sword in his hand seemed to slice through the air in an ordinary manner. Ordinary people would only see Suyu waving the clumsy Shura sword like a newbie in the sword path. But the crippled Daelord couldn't help but be moved when he saw this sword strike, and he muttered softly, "What profound attainments in the sword technique. This sword technique is so profound that it isn't inferior to the inheritance of the sword Daelord." Luoshin also sensed the extraordinary nature of this sword strike. She was a sword cultivator and understood the sword path better. Staring at the trajectory of the Azura sword, the contempt in her eyes disappeared, and she said lightly, "I didn't expect you to still have some hidden skills. However, compared to me, you are still far behind." The peak cultivation of a 4-crown emperor erupted with a loud bang, and he said, "Julie sword technique." The sword in his hand divided into 9 sword shadows, each of which seemed to be full of thousands of worlds, filled with extremely mysterious concepts. The 9 sword shadows swept over, making people feel as if they were under the bombardment of 9 worlds. The people watching the battle from afar felt so overwhelmed that they couldn't breathe. At this time, the trajectory of Suyu's sword strike had completely taken shape. A trajectory visible to the naked eye appeared casually, like the first crack that was opened in the chaotic world when the world was created. Crack! The 9 sword shadows that swept through the world vibrated under the trajectory, and signs of collapse appeared. However, it did not collapse. The 9 sword shadows crushed over tyrannically, annihilating the trajectory. Seeing this scene, the spectators gasped. Who the hell is that young man? He's actually able to contend with Luo Shun in terms of sword techniques. Wine and Meat Buddha, the Monster King, and the Smoke Dust all narrowed their eyes. When Suyu said that Luo Shun wasn't qualified to lead him, they didn't agree with him and felt that Suyu was being too arrogant. However, when they saw the sword, they realized that Suyu was not being arrogant. Indeed, Luo Shun wasn't capable of leading such a terrifying swordsmanship. It's a pity. The difference in cultivation is too big. He's destined to be inferior to Luo Shun. Yin Chen shook his head and sighed. The Demon King and Wine and Meat Buddha nodded slightly. Suyu's swordsmanship wasn't any weaker than Luoshin's. However, due to the huge difference in their cultivation, the might of their swordsmanship had resulted in one side suppressing the other. A trace of shock flashed through Luo Shun's eyes before she replied, "You're nothing much. I'm more than enough to lead you." Suyu didn't speak, but a boundless evil energy suddenly surged out of his body, and his whole body turned into a 30-meter-tall, half-human, half-dragon form. Gripping the Azura sect sword, he slashed out. It was the same dangerous trajectory as before, but this time, it was much more powerful. Bang! The 9 sword shadows, which were already showing signs of collapse, completely collapsed. Luo Shun's face changed dramatically, and her beautiful eyes were filled with deep disbelief. After the other party used some kind of divine technique, his strength had increased greatly, and he was able to forcefully counter her move. She gritted her teeth and said coldly, "Insignificant skill." After saying that, she fought with her sword. The two of them fought back and forth on the battlefield, and a shocking swordsmanship was intertwined in the air. The onlookers were already extremely shocked. Hiss! Luo Shin couldn't suppress him with all her strength. "What's his name?" "Su." "Suyu? Is there a human civilization with the surname Su in the Half-Path civilization?" There is no human civilization with this surname in the top 1,000 five-star civilizations. Who the hell is he? On the battlefield, Luo Shun became more and more frightened as she fought. She thought that Suyu's transformation was a short-lived burst, but after a stick of incense, there was no sign of decline. On the contrary, the other party's swordsmanship was getting sharper and sharper, and the mysterious trajectory made her feel a little numb. After fighting for a long time, Luo Shun felt even more humiliated. The dignified number 1 heaven ruler of the East region was actually tied by a nobody. Gritting her teeth, she was ready to sacrifice the rules and use all her strength. "That's enough, let's stop," the Tianqian Path Master said calmly at this moment, and an invisible force forced the two of them apart. Luo Shun was extremely unwilling. She took a deep breath, and her full chest rose and fell with each breath. A pair of crystal eyes stared at Suyu without blinking. There was unwillingness, shock, and a trace of awe in them. Suyu's expression was indifferent. He retracted the Nirvana evil dragon form and transformed into the human form. Chapter 2046. Hearing the Tianqian Path Master's laughter, everyone felt envious. The trip he spoke of wasn't made in vain naturally meant that he didn't come to the ecliptic meeting for nothing. How could he not be gratified to find a demon who was comparable to the 4 regions' heaven rulers? Uya Huanyun's mind was blank, and he fell into a deep daze. Suyu, who accompanied them to the ecliptic assembly, had always thought that Suyu, who only had half of his strength, could be comparable to the 4 great demons of the ecliptic palace. He had the illusion that he was in a dream and that he was not in the real world. Even Shi Jun, who had witnessed Suyu's superb swordsmanship, widened his eyes in shock. He knew that Suyu had the combat power to enter the top 10 of the eastern region, but he never imagined that his true strength was comparable to Luoshin herself. The battle between Suyu and Luoshin had shocked everyone. For countless years, the top heaven rulers within the jurisdiction of the Ecliptic Palace had all come from the Ecliptic Palace. Suyu was the only exception. The Tianqian Path Master smiled and nodded. "All right, I will make an exception for you. You can enter the realm of creation alone." The second stage was to be carried out in the realm of creation. "Follow me," the Tianqian Path Master said. Suddenly, everyone in the arena was teleported away on the spot. Suyu nodded slightly in his heart. His attainments in space were not bad. Unfortunately, he did not cultivate the law and only stayed at the level of techniques. Suyu was able to perform the same teleportation technique more easily and freely. On the other hand, the rest of the people were shocked. Although the Tianqian Path Master did not achieve the law of space, his attainments in space are probably comparable to those who have achieved the upper realm of the law of space, right? That is not necessarily the case. The law of space is a supreme law above the level 9 laws. It is very difficult to compete with it. The audience's discussion lingered in their ears. Suyu and the others had appeared in a group of ancient palaces. Celestial clouds floated gracefully, white cranes flew together, and the vicissitudes of time overwhelmed them. The grand and solemn halls gave people a boundless sense of oppression. One of the halls was located in the center of many halls, with the words ecliptic written on it. There were tens of thousands of halls, all centered around this hall, like stars surrounding the moon. That must be the ecliptic hall. However, they did not approach the ecliptic hall. Instead, they landed in front of a deserted ancient hall. The hall was overgrown with weeds. No, it was not a wild grass. It was a rare divine grass that could be sold for tens of thousands of Dao coins in the outside world. However, it was only weeds, and no one took care of it. Looking at the hall, it looked dilapidated and dilapidated. The stairs in front of the hall were damaged and incomplete. The two stone lions were also densely covered in the mottled traces of time. Raising his head, he saw a horizontal board hanging on the wall. On the board, the word creation was written in a forceful manner. The words contained an extremely mysterious meaning. Suyu only took a glance at them, and he was instantly immersed in them. He was unable to extricate himself, and his mind uncontrollably searched for the mysteries within the words. Su's master, Su, and he said. Su's master. He's Su. That should have been written by the Tao Master himself, right? It contains the Path Master's comprehension of the path. If a mortal were to take a look at it, he would surely be deeply immersed in it, unable to extricate himself, Suyu said to himself. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the people around him. Indeed, those who stuck their heads out to look at the signboard were entranced by it, unable to control themselves. What a powerful path! Suyu had experienced the Path Master's Mu-Su many times in the Taishu Xian Palace, but it had never been like this. Wake up! Suddenly, the Tianqin Path Master's voice floated into everyone's ears. The people who were lost in it woke up and immediately lowered their heads in fear, not daring to look at the Creation Master. This is the Creation Master's palace. He has been dead for billions of years, but the path meaning in the words he left behind has not been erased. Bai Jianfei said in surprise. Was this palace the residence of a Path Master? Then, were the tens of thousands of palaces he saw just now? So you cannot help but gasp. Tens of thousands of Path Masters. Wasn't the ecliptic hall's heritage too terrifying? Unfortunately, the Path Masters also have a lifespan. They have all fallen in the dust of time, leaving only empty palaces behind. Bai Jianfei sighed, his heart filled with regret. Yiming Hua said, Isn't that so? The ecliptic palace had witnessed the gradual rise of one Tao Lord after another, and also witnessed the fall of one Tao Lord after another. Rather than saying that the 10,000 palaces in front of them were rites more like an ancient tomb. Hearing this, Suyu came to a realization. It turned out that all the palaces had been accumulated over the generations, and most of them were as deserted as the Great Hall of Fortune. There shouldn't be many Tao Lords who are still alive. The crippled Heaven Tao Master looked at the board and sighed. Long time no see, old friend. With a wave of his sleeve, the doors to the Hall of Fortune opened. Inside the courtyard, a white-haired old man was playing chess by himself. His expression was serene, and his entire body exuded an indescribable hazy feeling. At first glance, it looked like a real person, but upon closer inspection, it didn't. Suyu was the only one who could see that it wasn't a living creature with a soul. It was just a projection left behind in the mortal world. Even after 10 billion years, it still hadn't been destroyed, repeating the same game of chess. Follow me inside. Remember not to touch anything in the hall at will. Otherwise, your life will be in danger. Everyone nodded. After all, it was left behind by the Path Master. Even if he had fallen for 10 billion years, the things he left behind still contained his understanding. If they accidentally touched something dangerous, it would be the place where they would die. Carving. Suyu passed by the projection of the Creation Path Master and glanced at him. Then, he glanced at the chessboard he was playing. He stopped to look at it and memorize the chessboard. Under the guidance of the crippled Heaven Tao Master, they entered the inner courtyard. As soon as they stepped inside, the land disappeared and was replaced by a boundless sea. This was definitely not a space that contained a universe, but a sea that had been created from scratch. This is the sea of good fortune that the Creation Tao Lord created before he passed away in meditation. There are a total of 204 islands in the sea, and each island has a different number of good fortune medallions. Who will take them? The one who obtains more creation tokens will be able to obtain a higher ranking in the ecliptic meeting. Compared with the previous single duels, competing for the creation tokens was undoubtedly more fair. Not only did they have to obtain the creation tokens, but they also had to keep them. It was a test of everyone's comprehensive strength. Suyu's goal was to compete for the top 10 in order to get the Bodhi fruit. Therefore, he had to go all out. I need to remind you that the creation sea is not something you can touch. The crippled Heaven Tao Master captured a drop of water in the air and took out a top true Emperor Divine weapon with his right hand. When the drop of water fell on the divine weapon, a strange scene occurred. The top divine weapon was broken down into pieces of materials. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. The true Emperor Divine weapon was turned into raw materials. If a human touched it, wouldn't it be turned into the most primitive blood and flesh? Everything is divided into pros and cons. If you accidentally touch the creation sea, your fate will change in two ways. One is that you will get a beneficial creation and gain something in some aspect. The other is that the divine weapon in front of you will be destroyed by the creation. Yenshin thought for a moment and said, "May I ask Supreme Master, what is the probability of the pros and cons?" The crippled Heaven Tao Master said, 10% profit, 90% loss. The faces of everyone present changed suddenly, and a last bit of hope in their hearts instantly disappeared. Wasn't this a narrow escape from death? Many of them still had the thought of trying. What if they got a beneficial creation? However, after hearing this, they no longer had the slightest bit of hope. Suyu looked at the boundless creation sea. Since he couldn't touch the sea, could he only teleport? However, he could feel that there was a kind of Taoist will in the sky above the creation sea that prevented teleportation. "I can't teleport here, can I?" Suyu asked. The crippled Heaven Tao Master's eyes flashed. Among the people present, only Suyu sensed that he couldn't teleport. This guy was a bit strange. "You can't teleport," the crippled Heaven Tao Master said. "What?" The faces of more than 40 people present changed drastically. If they couldn't teleport, how could they cross the creation sea and go to the island? Could they use ships? However, the water of the creation sea could even break down a true Emperor Divine weapon. What other material could withstand the water of the creation sea? Only a Taoist artifact fairy embryo or a Taoist artifact could withstand it, right? However, the creation Tao Master once left 4 creation ships that can sail freely on the creation sea. They are located on 4 islands. Now, I will send you to those islands. The fight for the creation tokens will be up to you. When he finished speaking, the crippled Heaven Tao Master pulled the air with both hands. Suddenly, all the people present were dragged up. Then, he stepped on the creation sea and galloped away. The 40 people were sent to different islands. Beside each island, there was a decaying old ship. It seemed as if it would break apart as soon as it sailed out. Suyu was assigned to the same island as Luotian of the East. After the crippled Heaven Tao Master left, Luotian looked at Suyu with an unfriendly expression and said, "Chunzruin, you lead the rest of the people to search for the creation tokens on the island." She stayed behind to guard the ship. This was her only tool to go to the other islands. If Suyu took the ship while she was away, her ecliptic meeting would come to an end. Suyu hesitated for a moment and pondered. He didn't necessarily need the creation ship. He had a cauldron-shaped Taoist artifact, fairy embryo, in his hand, so he shouldn't be afraid of the water of the creation sea. With that thought in mind, he left the shore and went to the depths of the island. The area of the island wasn't large. With a casual glance, he found a decaying relic. Teleportation couldn't be done here, so he could only use his physique. Fortunately, Suyu's physique wasn't much weaker than Chunrun's, who was ranked 6th on the ecliptic list. They hurried to the vicinity of the relic. There were faint traces of the activities of living creatures there. There were cities, roads, houses, tombs, and so on, but they were all covered with a thick layer of dust.